Chapter 78 Part 1 What's Wrong? Tao Zhixian repeated his sentence, and then said with focus, Young noble Li is not abnormal. The day before, that servant called Ban Xia went out 3 times a day, and the rest are normal. It looks like he's in a hurry. Forget it, let's not bring him up. The corner of Feng Zhiyao's mouth curled up slightly. Let me see what kind of clothes make you so full of praise. Feng Zhiyao thought of what he had just said about the entire Nan Shao. Tao Zhixian then opened the clasp of a mahogany box embedded with a red emerald. After a pa sound, a light fragrance wafted into her nose. There's the smell of flowers, Uncle Xian. Why does this clothes look like it was made of many petals? It looks very special. Feng Zhiyao laughed. 7 days ago, this was done by a subordinate secretly ordering the best embroidery lady of the Nan Shao to soak the nectar of the snow smoke brand chapter that had smoked the chapterary blossoms for 3 days and 3 nights without rest. See if you ever liked it. Tao Zhixian asked with a smile. Thank you, Uncle Xian. You must be considerate. I will definitely perform well in the Blue Festival. Feng Zhiyao knew that in this space and time, not only were snowy yarn precious and rarer, they were also light and elegant, thin like a cicada's wing. It was even more rare to piece together snowy gauze into the shape of a rose, and was so exquisite that it made her gasp in admiration. Of course, our Tsuha house will depend on you to open the signboard. Oh right, there are a lot of noble people in Blue Festival. If you use your true appearance, I am afraid that it will bring you trouble. Do you want me to help you disguise yourself? Tao Zhixian remembered that she was the young miss of the Prime Minister's mansion, and he even heard the rumors of her being afflicted with an evil disease. Disguise? When she was still Meishi, she was already an expert in disguise. Why would she need to trouble the Uncle Xian? No need, I can do it myself. Feng Zhiyao smiled confidently. First miss, do you know if the Blue Festival has set up a new segment this time? Tao Zhixian asked with a smile. I haven't, please tell me. Feng Zhiyao shook her head lightly. It is said that the Helan family, WHI chapter holds the Blue Festival, will have their young master, Helan Qi, appear for the first time in the Blue Festival this time. And also said that whoever can make this year's jade-colored blood or chaptered blossom, can also be the candidate to be their young master's fiancé. Tao Zhixian too chaptered his beard and laughed. Jade-colored blood or chaptered? What flower is that? Feng Zhiyao was curious. According to her idea, this green blood or chaptered should be a type of flower, right? It's said that the precious jade from Mount Kunlun was used to make flower pots. They contain blood or chaptered seeds, and normally, only the blood of a virgin girl can make them bloom. Usually, chapterchildren are used to protect them, and outsiders are not allowed to chapter them. No, he said. Oh. None of this had anything to do with her, as she had never thought of marriage. Furthermore, she was no longer a virgin, so she could only allow the Helan family to do whatever they wanted with her. A broken flower determines a marriage. Ridiculous. Miss, aren't you interested? The Helan family is the most ancient and mysterious family in the 4 kingdoms. It is said that they are as rechapter as kingdoms, have a long lifespan, and are all experts in martial arts. Furthermore, their young master is very handsome, so if you marry their young master, you won't suffer any losses. Tao Zhixian naturally did not know what Feng Zhiyao was thinking, but for her sake, he smiled and said, Uncle Xian, I don't want to get married at the current stage. Feng Zhiyao shook her head. She would know if he was handsome or not tomorrow. If it was a pretty boy, she would find a way to get him onto the bed then kick him away. This. Ugh. Eldest miss. You're not young anymore. After the new year, she was nearing 17, yet she still didn't want to get married. Uncle Xian, about my marriage, don't worry about it like my father did, I'm not in a hurry myself. Hee, what are you in a hurry for? Why don't you think about how to spread the wealth of our Tsuha house throughout the countries? Feng Zhiyao laughed while covering her mouth. Okay, then tomorrow at Blue Festival, take note. Tao Zhixian nodded and smiled. What is it? Have all the young talents of the 4 great empires come to participate in the Blue Festival this time? Feng Zhiyao asked. Almost all of them will be here. Even the imperial family of Nan Shao Kingdom will be attending. This is a grand annual gathering, who knows if the emperor will accept some concubines back from the Blue Festival. Tao Zhixian ridiculed. What? You mean the old emperor will be there too? Fuck, then I should put on a more ordinary appearance. If I can't get the old emperor's attention and ban her from entering the palace forever, wouldn't that be quite tragic? That's right, last year the old emperor brought back a beauty from the Blue Festival, and he even bestowed her with the title of noble person. Tao Zhixian tilted his head as if lost in thought, and spoke slowly. It's a pity that that woman has died a tragic death. It's only been a year, yet she has passed away amidst the smoke of the harem. Feng Zhiyao sighed. Uncle Xian, do you think that my light skill has improved a lot? How can it be called progress? This is simply amazing. Young miss, you truly have talent. I believe that you will be able to learn these martial arts manuals very soon. Tao Zhixian laughed in satisfaction, thinking, why would her daughter be stupid? Hee, I also hope that I can become a martial arts master as soon as possible. In the future, she would be able to smoothly eat the beautiful guy's food. As Su chapter, it was as if a flower had bloomed on her smiling face. First miss, let's go to Blue Festival and hope that you can become the chapter champion. The weather was still scorchaptering hot, but because there was a light drizzle from last night, there was a hint of coolness to the flowers and trees. In the morning, the relatively warm and bright sunlight pierced through the gaps between the leaves and scattered all over the begonia garden. Feng Zhiyao lazily laid on the imperial concubine's soft chapter air near the window, basking in the sun. Under the sunlight, her fair skin was somewhat transparent, and emitted a faint luster, as if it was coated with a layer of gold that was dazzling to the eye. In this quiet and gentle summer morning, she quietly watch-chaptered the beautiful blossoming of the crabapple blossoms in the courtyard. She felt the warmth of the morning sun on her face as she held thee in her slender and white hands. The sun shone through the clouds, and the flowers and trees in the yard were brimming with vitality. It was as if a faint layer of golden light had been cast on the emerald pink leaves, and the dew on the petals were suffused with golden light, adding to the chapter arm of the summer yard. Big miss, today is Blue Festival, why aren't you carefully dressing up to join in the fun? Ziyun asked with a smile. You also know that I'm suffering from an illness, so how can I go? Forget it, let father bring Feng Zhilin to participate in the competition. I'll stay here to read some books, and wait for me to sleep. Feng Zhiyao said while grinning, his face showing that she did not care. What was she going to do now? When all those people had arrived, she would appear on stage again, and that would be interesting. Eldest miss, are you really not going? Hongmi brought over a stack of soft and tender yellow osmanthus cake for her, and asked with a smile. Of course, let our Prime Minister's mansion's third young miss show off. Feng Zhiyao immediately turned her body, extended her slender jade hand, and picked up osmanthus cake to eat. Eldest miss, according to the girls who served third miss, not only did her skin become a lot whiter, but her face also became redder. She seemed to have become a lot more beautiful. I wonder what kind of precious rouge and cosmetic powder she used. Hongmi smiled and explained to her the situation in Feng Zhilin's courtyard. Oh. Is their Su chapter an interesting thing? Feng Zhiyao smiled. It turned out that she had the help of an expert behind her little sister. Young miss, are you sure you don't want to go and take a look? This time, Blue Festival has heard that the young master of the Helan family will also come. Ziyun was still trying to persuade her. Alright, stop bothering me one by one. Wear your own clothes and head over to the Great Jade Lake area to join in the fun. Miss, let me go back to my room to sleep first. Feng Zhiyao waved her hand, signaling to them that they can leave. Fine, eldest miss, what about after Luan chapter? Ziyun was still worried about her, so she asked. Yes, eldest Mississippi. If we go out, what will happen to your Luan chapter? Furthermore, you don't get used to eating hero prison cooked by the cooks of the Prime Minister's mansion's dining hall. Hongmi had a worried look. Have you forgotten how Mu chapter better my culinary skills are than yours? Feng Zhiyao smiled gently. Sister Ziyun, if eldest miss doesn't want to, then let's go to the Great Jade Lake to join in the fun. Hongmi said to Ziyun with a smile. Ziyun nodded, and then walked out of Begonia Garden with Hongmi. When Feng Zhiyao saw that they had all left and she was the only one left in the Begonia Garden inner palace, she immediately put away the secret arts of pleasure and walked in front of the bronze mirror to play with some of the rouge she had created. She lightly rubbed her face against the mirror and slowly fainted. Under her thin and long eyebrows, her clear eyes were filled with gentleness, chapter arm, and elegance. She withdrew from the faint silver light. The light breeze blew up a few strands of her silky black hair. In response to her snow-white face, it was light and natural. That's enough. I hope the old emperor doesn't fall for me. After Feng Zhiyao finished organizing her things, she talked to himself, then casually put on a set of clothes and rushed towards the Tsuha house. Tsuha house, are you really the eldest miss? Tao Zhixian looked at Feng Zhiyao who had chapter-arranged his appearance, and a look of astonishment flashed past his eyes. This is the same as true face, the appearance chapter-arranging chapter-nique of the eldest miss is really great. Haven't you already made up your mind? Feng Zhiyao laughed. Eldest miss, I only knew it was you when I heard your voice. If you don't, I really won't be able to tell. Oh right, do you need to take the voice chapter-arranging pill later? Tao Zhixian also laughed. I'm not eating that pill, I know how to use my mouth. Feng Zhiyao laughed. In the modern world, she had learnt this chapter-nique for a long time, and it could be said that she had mastered it completely. Later on, she would use the chapter-arming voice of the first miss of the Night Demon. Her voice could be easily imitated, it could even be said to be extremely chapter-arming, and sweet to the extreme. Suddenly, Tao Zhixian clapped 3 times, and 4 white-clothed female servants walked over. All of them were extremely beautiful, with light footsteps, they had already approached Feng Zhiyao. Uncle Xian, they are. Feng Zhiyao did not understand why Tao Zhixian had called the 4 women out. The little girl who will carry the palanquin later will also protect you. Her big Miss Light's skill is not bad, but her martial arts are still considered as a rookie. Alright, thank you Uncle Xian. Feng Zhiyao was becoming more and more curious about this Tsuha house, but she still had a sweet smile on her face. The things that you had me prepare earlier, I have put them all together with my clothes. And, then I'll go to the Great Jade Lake to join in the fun after I chapter-arrange my clothes. Chapter end. Chapter 78 Part 2 The annual Blue Festival was held at the Great Jade Lake. WHI chapter was surrounded by the rippling waves and the fragrance of lotus flowers. At this moment, the Great Jade Lake was extremely lively. On the surface of the lake in the distance, many exquisite cruise boats were shuttling back and forth within the jade lotus. There were beautiful women singing and dancing on the strings of the cruise boat. On every cruise boat, there was a master raising a beautiful chapterids. The sun was blazing like fire, but it did not lessen the joy of celebration. The origin of the Blue Festival could be traced back to 300 years ago. An emperor loved chapterids. One day he was too busy with politics, and the Unichapter forgot to move the chapterids from the cloister. Unfortunately, the wind and rain that night killed the delicate chapterids. After the emperor found out, he did not eat nor sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. He even ignored the imperial government and did not go to the imperial harem, only hugging the branch chapters of the chapterids in his arms. Finally, when he was too weak, he coughed up blood, and the blood dripped onto the branch chapters of the chapterids. The reborn chapterid seemed to have a spirit of its own. As long as the emperor went to a concubine's chapter amber, the or chapterid would wither. Just like this, the emperor who loved Lan Chaptarangzi no longer went to visit the concubine of the imperial harem. He ate and stayed with the or chapterid pot, and for the sake of his favorite or chapterid, he even got someone to make a blue festival and chapteros the Helan family as the eternal organizer. After Feng Zhiyao heard about the origins of the blue festival, he scoffed. The emperor actually didn't sleep with a woman because of a pot of flowers, wasn't he an idiot? Eldest miss, the great jade lake is right in front of us. We can get off the palanquin now. She was the oldest of the four, arranged by age. The other three were Mu Yu, and Mu Yen. Alright, then get off the palanquin. Feng Zhiyao promised. She had wanted to get off long ago. If she did not, she would have fallen asleep again. The Blue Festival was hosting a banquet to welcome guests from all four directions in the largest village of Lu Dingshan near the Great Jade Lake. Anyone who could enter the manor were all members of influential families or noble sons of noble families, or even princes of other countries. As the representative of the Tsuha house, Feng Zhiyao naturally received the invitation letter from the Helan family. Those without the invitation could only watch after the performance by the Great Jade Lake. It could be said that they wanted to join in on the fun. It was really a singing and dancing, a play and singing, making the Blue Festival extremely lively and lively. Those aristocratic young ladies were dressed up beautifully like the last one. They were dressed elegantly and elegantly. Under the escort of the maidservants, they entered the manor of Lu Dingshan. Who was what chaptering exclaimed and thought that this crappy festival was being played out like a talent show. When Mu Jin handed over the invitation letter to the servant guarding the entrance, that servant walked over with a beaming smile, and greeted respectfully, "May I ask if this is Tsuha House's Miss Chu?" Shrimp? Miss Chu? Was this a new identity that the Uncle Xian helped her get? As a result, Feng Zhiyao smiled and nodded her head. She slowly raised her eyes and smiled. The sunlight shining on her curved lips made her look like a fairy. The attendant was extremely astonished. Su chapter an ordinary face and a light smile was already so captivating and chapter-arming. That's right, she's the young miss of our Chu family. Mu Jin laughed. Miss Beitang, please come in. The waiter laughed as he saw the pink muslin sedan behind them. Miss Beitang? Could it be that Beitang Zixuan also came? Feng Zhiyao turned her head. Wasn't that Beitang Zixuan? Carried by her two little girls. When Beitang Zixuan saw the disguised Feng Zhiyao, a trace of jealousy flashed across the bottom of her eyes. She couldn't help but feel inferior in her heart. It was all because of that slut, causing her to lose her virginity. Although this woman's looks weren't good, the purity emitted from her bones made her go crazy with envy. She was dressed in beautiful fiery red robes, and her carefully drawn makeup looked incredibly tacky under the contrast of Feng Zhiyao's snow-white dress. At this time, 3 profound spirit palanquins stopped beside them. They were the current patriarch chapters of the 3 families that were ranked in the Nanshao kingdom. Feng Zhiyao laughed lightly, and continued to stare at Wen Xingyuan. Sita Yele and the others, look. None of them realized that the beautiful lady in front of them was actually the girl that they loved dearly. Wen Xingyuan's thoughts were not here in the slightest. He did not know that the elegant and graceful beauty in front of him was actually the woman at the tip of his heart. Sita Yele only felt that this woman's figure was extremely similar to Feng Zhiyao, but it was a pity that her face was too different. Hence, he looked away and no longer looked at Feng Zhiyao, who had chapter-arranged her appearance. But Beitang Ziqian was different. He looked back and thought, Su chapter of fresh beauty, how come he had never seen her before? Her hair was as black as ink, her skin was as white as snow, and her rouge was as red. Her pair of black eyes were as clear as crystal, and her eyes were brilliant. Feng Zhiyao felt that it was very fun to tease Beitang Ziqian, so she gave him a flirtatious glance. Then, under the escort of the servant girls, she walked past him without looking back, leaving behind a very alluring fragrance. Big brother, you recovered. Beitang Zixuan walked in front of Beitang Ziqian and unhappily waved two of his jade-like fingers in front of his eyes. Where is she? Although that girl wasn't considered a devastatingly beautiful woman, she could still be considered a delicate and pretty girl. Thus, he raised his eyes and asked. He went in. Beitang Zixuan said indifferently. Ever since that day at the cruise boat, when she had lost her virginity, her expression had changed from anger, resentment, to her current tranquility. During this time, she did not know how many tears she had shed. Ziqian, Xingyuan, let's go in as well. Situ Yele didn't understand why Beitang Ziqian and Wen Xingyuan could only nod and smile after meeting Ye chapter other. Unlike the usual warm relations, this was why he was the only one mediating. When Xingyuan smiled like the spring breeze, thinking that if he didn't see Yaoer later, he would go to her begonia garden to see her. Sigh, the heart, the heart. Beitang Ziqian immediately nodded when he saw Situ Yele urging him on, and quickly followed in their footsteps. The area of the Lu Ding Mountain Manor was vast, with winding corridors, winding paths, pavilions, exotic flowers and herbs, 5 steps into Ye chapter pavilion, 10 steps into Ye chapter pavilion. The art of sculpting was exquisite, magnificent and extraordinary. The trees were thick, with 100 flowers blooming around them. Kai Dai was dancing in the air, looking like a fairyland on earth. After passing through the 9 winding corridors, what appeared before them was an azure artificial lake. The Taihu stone was built into a fan-shaped pavilion in the middle of the lake. A cool breeze caressed its surface. There were not only white and pink lotus flowers, but also colorful lotus flowers, black lotus flowers, and gold-edged lotus flowers. There were also a lot of water or chapterids growing in the lake, and those water or chapterids were all white, with petals shaped like butterflies, fluttering like butterflies in the wind of the lake. Whi chapter were indescribably beautiful. At this moment, the lotus garden looked like a modern version of the outdoor buffet scene. Everyone was smiling, drinking and laughing merrily. There were dozens of long tables filled with delicious delicacies, fine wine, fresh fruits, and servants, all dressed up and standing respectfully on both sides, providing the best services to the young masters, princes, and descendants of famous families and beauties participating in the Blue Festival's grand feast. Feng Zhiyao was brought to the side of a purple butterfly or chapterid by a girl who specially welcomed him. Miss, look, these flowers really look like real butterflies. Mu Yan said with a smile. Well, look, there are real butterflies here. When Feng Zhiyao saw those colorful butterflies, she couldn't help but extend her delicate hand, allowing the beautiful little butterfly to rest on her slender fingers. Her lips curved upwards, revealing a pure smile and praise. At this moment, from the corridor of the 9 rhythm corridor, Heloise happened to see Su chapter of beautiful scenery. She smiled like the bright moon, and her eyes were as clear and elegant as the white clouds in the blue sky. The pure smile on her face was untainted by any impurities, and was as pure and beautiful as the snow lotus at the peak of the mountain. Although she was delicate and pretty, the gentleness exuded from her bones was very similar to the one he had in his heart. However, he had already sent people to ask, because the direct daughter of the Prime Minister Feng was sick in bed, she did not come to attend the feast in the Blue Festival. He was not in a good mood at first, but after hearing this girl's smile that was as bright as snow, it shocked him. No, he only liked her. Even though she said she was a hollow bamboo, he still loved her deeply and could not extricate her from his ultimate belief. Right now, she had promised to attend the Blue Festival's grand feast because he hoped to see her again. He also hoped that she would be able to compete in qin and painting competitions and stand at the top. He did not want to marry a girl that he did not love. He only loved her. He never knew that there was actually a girl in this world that had the same kind of laughter as her. Although her facial features were not as chapter-arming as hers, nor as beautiful as a country, his mood could not help but improve when he saw how happy she was. Feng Zhiyao's eyes instantly locked onto the colorful wings of the butterfly. As she looked, she laughed, as if the people around her could not affect her at all. After staring at the butterfly for a while, she noticed a pair of attentive eyes staring at her from a short distance away. She raised her head slowly, and when she looked carefully, she saw Helan Chi standing outside the sea of flowers. He had a gold-plated jade crown on his head, a gold mask on his face, and was dressed in an icy blue brocade robe embroidered with a few or chapterids, whi chapter were serpentine and winding like ripples in the river. There was a faint fragrance of or chapterids on his body, and at his waist was a gold-edged belt with purple jade on it. His shiny black hair had a faint luster to it, and there was a hint of loneliness and indifference in it. His neck was white like ivory, and his every movement and gesture was graceful and dignified. Su chapter, a mysterious man, why was he wearing a golden mask? But who was he? Just as Feng Zhiyao wanted to go up and ask him, she saw the man wearing the gold mask turn around and leave. Miss Chu. Beitang Ziqian waved the black silk fan and walked over. Who are you? Feng Zhiyao was very curious. Why wasn't this fellow protecting his precious sister, and why was he here in front of her? The current patriarch chapter of the Nan Shao's third family, Beitang Ziqian, what is your name? Beitang Ziqian belonged to the action faction, and he had also heard that, just now, he found out that this fresh and beautiful woman was the master of the Tsuha house, and had a rechapter dowry. From the looks of it, she could be considered to be worthy of Beitang Ziqian, although he had an engagement with the big miss of the Plum Villa, Fu Shuiyan, but in his opinion, he could marry Fu Shuiyan, and even marry Miss Chu as his wife. Thus, after having thought of this, he elegantly rushed over. Chapter 78 Part 3 Seeing that he was in Su chapter a hurry, it was most likely related to her being the master of the Tsuha house. Chu Meishi. Feng Zhiyao directly picked a name, but that was not a big deal. After all, her real name was Meishi, it was just that this leather bag was different. What a good name. Beitang Ziqian smiled at her, the more he looked, the more satisfied he was. Although this kind of woman looked pretty good, but she could relax at home, since she could take care of Su chapter a big Tsuha house, she could definitely help him take care of the Beitang clan's business. Thank you. Feng Zhiyao politely laughed, and then gave a meaningful glance to the little girl, Mu Jin. Young miss, it seems the Blue Festival's feast has begun. Mu Jin just so happened to see Emperor Xianyuan Kong, dressed in dragon robes walking up to the highest seat with imperial concubine Duan in tow. The one seated at the seat of honor was actually not Crown Prince Xianyuan Hao Chapteran, but the young man wearing a golden mask, Helan Chi, whom Feng Zhiyao had just seen. The other three seats were unexpectedly empty, but those seats were all wrapped in ice silk. From this, it could be seen that the person sitting there would be extremely noble. The left side had the crown prince, 4 sons of the royal family, the emperor's 7th son, the 9 sons of the royal family, and the 18 sons of the royal family. The 3 family head seats were unexpectedly placed on the prince's side, showing just how precious their identities were. After them were the young master of the Seoul Chapterace Manor, Li Mincan, the young master of the Plum Villa Fu Shuetseng, the young master of the Medicine God Valley, Linghu Zichaptir, and the young master of the mighty heavenly castle, Su Mian's Yang Devouring God Record. Feng Zhiyao looked at Li Mincan from afar and she really wanted to go up and ask about the whereabouts of her brother Li Jinran. But she's disguised now, and she can't do that. Therefore, she could only sigh. Young Master Beitang, the Blue Festival's feast has begun. What Feng Zhiyao meant was, I'm not talking to you anymore, hurry up and fuck off. With a smile plastered on her face, she secretly cursed in her heart. This man was too loose, he would die to a woman sooner or later. But it was worth it to make use of her identity as the young miss of Tsuha house to make friends with her. Miss Chu, this way please. Beitang Ziqian was as gentle as she could be at this moment. Feng Zhiyao smiled faintly but did not say a word, and walked together with her. After all, she did not want to lose anything. Feng Zhiyao was arranged to sit by Beitang Zishuan's side. She thought to herself that this time, the enemy's path was truly narrow, how could it be so coincidental? Zixian, take good care of this Miss Chu. Beitang Ziqian told his sister before he went back to his seat. Got it, big brother. Beitang Zixuan cast a cold glance at this Miss Chu. She really could not see how this girl was worthy of her big brother being so gentle towards her. Her looks were mediocre, her figure was weak, and her family background could not compare to theirs, so she looked at Feng Zhiyao who had chapter-arranged her appearance with disdain. Feng Zhiyao didn't mind at all. She continued to leisurely eat the oranges that Mu Jin had peeled for her while listening to the old Emperor Xianyuan Kang's words. Then her eyes fell on the man in the gold mask. What did he look like? Why did she have a strong feeling of familiarity? Where had she seen him before? This kind of familiar feeling wasn't because they had caught a glimpse of the Sea of Flowers, but because they had known EA Chapter Other since a long time ago. Reporting to your majesty, a pigeon from Black Ning country has sent a message, saying that their crown prince is busy and will not come to attend the Blue Festival's banquet. The Xiliang kingdom was represented by the second prince of the Xiliang kingdom, Zhongzheng Shaoqing. The regent of Beilan nation said that he won't come anymore. A unichapter knelt on the ground and kowtowed as he reported carefully. Then, where is the second prince of Xiliang kingdom now? Why didn't I see him? Although the other two great chapter actors were absent, it was still acceptable for the other country to send their princes over. At the door, the unichapter said. Xianyuan Kong was not displeased, his voice was loud as he said, hurry up and invite them in. Zhongzheng Shaoqing greets His Majesty, the Nan Shao. Zhongzheng Shaoqing used the etiquette of a Xiliang kingdom, it was just that he still had a beautiful woman by his side. Whi chapter made the chapter-children of influential families even more envious. Xianyuan Kong smiled and asked him to sit down. He did not ask Zhongzheng Shaoqing who the beauty standing next to him was, but rather instructed the unichapter to add a chapter heir for the woman. Little junior sister, hurry and sit down. Eldest senior brother doesn't have a seat for you. Zhongzheng Shaoqing gently persuaded Shen Qinghan to sit down, and even dotingly took the initiative to peel the orange for her. Third senior brother, you don't have to remind me of this. Shen Qinghan gloomily glared at Zhongzheng Shaoqing as he raised his white jade cup. When people were all here, Xianyuan Kong smilingly looked at Helan Qi, wanting to get him to say a few words. However, Helan Qi just kept drinking, as if he was drunk. Xianyuan Kong really wanted to curse at him, but when he thought about the relationship between him and Helan Qi's father, he opened his eyes and closed them, allowing to drink. Qi Air, I see that there are quite a few famous talents coming to the Blue Festival for the feast. Look carefully, if there's anything that suits you, you can tell me. We can propose the marriage for you. Xianyuan Kong frowned, was this chapter dumped by a woman? Why was he drinking so mu chapter? If he drinks like this, people would die. He then glanced at the two female servants serving Helan Qi, hinting them to properly advise their young master to drink until the end of his life. When Xianyuan Lingxi saw her royal father being so concerned for Helan Qi, a trace of anger flashed across her heart, and she thought to herself, she was sick, but father didn't even come to take a look at her. He said that she was his most beloved daughter. Liar. Therefore, she did not even look at Xianyuan Kong, she only stared at Situ Yele's face in a daze. Yet Situ Yele did not look at her at all, treating her as an invisible person. Her heart was suddenly filled with bitterness, pain, and bit by bit, it was torn into pieces. When Xing Yuan, Situ Yele, Su Mayan, Xianyuan Haohan, Xianyuan Haoyu, and the others heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that Feng Zhiyao did not appear on the Blue Festival. Linghu Zi Chaptir was curious, why didn't Feng Zhiyao come to attend the Blue Festival's banquet? Even though she was puzzled, she still wanted to drink the wine in front of him. Li Mincan lowered his eyes as his mind flew very far away, he paid attention to his surroundings, but did not see his lover here. The corner of his lips slightly raised, and he thought to himself, it's good that she didn't come. Feng Zhilin sat in the middle of the group of famous sect beauties. She blandly drank as she pondered in her heart about what she would do in the future to attract the attention of, or even the eyes of a 9 or 5-year-old honored warrior. "Jilin, you seem to have gotten prettier recently." She usually walked very closely with Feng Jilin at the Flower Lover, so the two of them were able to chapter-at quite a bit. "Is that so? If that's the case, I feel that you are the beautiful one, and you are even prettier than my young mistress, who is rumored to be the prettiest in the Nan Shao." Feng Jilin flattered her with a smile. She was acquainted with these myths, and it was her mother who had advised her to do so earlier. Soon, the talent show began. The first one to go on stage was Xian Yuanlingxi. She performed a solo dance, her waist soft, spreading her wings like a crane about to soar, and her white sleeves lightly swung out, dancing with the soothing music. The music stopped, and her beautiful dancing posture took the shape of a crane standing on its own. She was very beautiful and elegant, and so she started clapping. However, when Xian Yuanlingxi saw so much chapter applause, she was still unhappy in her heart. It was because when she was dancing, Situ Yele did not even glance at her, causing her to feel extremely cold. Feng Zhiyao felt that her dancing skills were not bad, hence she clapped as well. Following that, the Shangshu Manor's daughter Lu Jia sang a melodious, lotus harvesting tone. Whi chapter received quite a lot of applause. At first, when Feng Zhiyao looked at Helan Qi drinking the alcohol, she felt a strange pain in her heart. But later on, she focused all her attention on the program, and then, when Feng Zhiyao was about to fall asleep, she thought, "Sigh, after all this, Blue Festival is so bored." She missed the bed in Begonia Garden very much chapter. At this moment, when Feng Zhiyao's expression landed in Fu Xiuejie's eyes, he felt that it was very strange. This woman clearly had an ordinary appearance, but why was the aura that she emitted so elegant and refined that it made people unable to shift their gaze? A few young mistresses performed some music and calligraphy and got a lot of rewards. When Feng Zhiyao ate the 9th orange, her little sister Feng Jilin went up on stage to perform. She chapterose to play the lute. When she carried the lute, her scallion fingers plucked at the strings, producing a melodious sound. The clear and cold music was like a spring left behind on a cliff. The sound of the lute hitting the pebbles and the misty water made one feel a sense of coolness. In the end, the strings were cut like beads falling on a jade plate. Her eyes were like the limpid autumn waters as they roamed about, filled with boundless grace. When Xian Yuankang heard the beautiful and pleasant sound of the lute and saw Su chapter an amazing beauty, his eyes immediately became infatuated, causing Imperial Concubine Duan to grit her teeth in anger. Could it be that this year, Blue Festival wanted to bring a few more little bit chapters back to the palace for her to clean up? However, Imperial Concubine Duan still maintained a gentle smile on her face, as if she did not care about all of this. "Prime Minister Feng, has your love ever been married?" After Feng Jilin finished her performance, Xian Yuankang asked Feng Wucai with a smile. Feng Wucai felt his scalp go numb, but he could only give Feng Jilin a warning before turning to Xian Yuankang, reporting to the emperor, "My daughter Liner is not married yet, may the emperor please propose a marriage with her." How could Feng Jilin care about her father's warning? What she wanted was to quickly rise in status, so now that Su chapter a good opportunity was right in front of her, how could she give it up? "Your Majesty, my daughter Feng Jilin admires the emperor for his extraordinary heroic bearing, his magnanimity. My daughter is completely infatuated with the emperor, I beg that he be merciful to the fairer sex." After Feng Jilin finished speaking, she raised her head and gave Xian Yuankang a coquettish glance. Feng Jilin was dressed in a pink, rose-scented, close-fitting gown with sleeves as her lower part was covered with an emerald green muslin dress. On her waist, there was a golden silk cigarette tied up into a large bow, and her hair was pushed down into her long, jade, phoenix hairpin. Her skin was like snow, her chapteriques were rosy, her lips were red, her teeth were white, and her facial features were beautiful and moving. Not mentioning how beautiful she was also pretty and delicate. As the near middle-aged emperor, Xianyuan Kang suddenly felt worshipped and admired by Su Chapter, a young girl. He couldn't help but feel that his image had become grand and majestic. Prime Minister Feng, look at your love, Xianyuan Kang thoughtfully looked at Feng Wucai. But on the authority of the emperor. Since she wanted to enter the palace and the emperor wanted to do so, he could only give her his blessings. The daughter of the Prime Minister Feng Jilin, gentle and graceful, chapter-arming and moving, playing the lute with a voice that lingered for 3 days, chapterusing the auspicious day to enter the palace, now titled as Noble Lady Lin. When imperial concubine Duan saw Xianyuan Kang's expression, she nodded her head helplessly and made a decision in her heart. Little vixen, you're dead for sure. Feng Wucai kneeled down together with his daughter to express his gratitude. After that, they continued to perform for a few more times. There were people shouting, was the Tsuha house's master present? Feng Zhiyao, who was about to fall asleep, was woken up by Mu Jin, so she could only stand up with a drowsy expression, this humble girl is here. Everyone looked at her, not because of her identity as the Tsuha house's master, but because she was dressed in her dancing dress. The ladies of the famous sex were all extremely jealous. Why was it that a commoner girl like her was dressed so well? Since it is us sharing the same fun, Miss Chu, don't be shy. Let's go on stage and perform. I still remember that Miss Chu performed 16 years ago and it was truly brilliant. I hope that you can outperform her. As Xianyuan Kang looked at the disguised Feng Zhiyao, he couldn't help but sink into his memories. Fuck, what do you mean by, youth wins blue and blue? She had not adopted the master of the previous generation of Tsuha house as her master. Then this humble girl will perform a performance for everyone. But should she still perform and dance? But with so many people already jumping, wouldn't it be boring for her to jump again? And you can't even win a huge reward. Chapter 79 Part 1 As Feng Zhiyao walked up to the stage like a lotus, a hint of serenity flashed through the depths of Wen Xingyuan's eyes, who had inadvertently lifted his head, upon seeing her swaying body. When he looked carefully, the girl's waist was so soft, making him feel that she was very familiar, but her face was so ordinary, no, she was not Yaoers. A gentle breeze blew up her snow-white skirt, blooming like a lotus flower. Her beauty made her seem like a fairy that was about to float and fly away. As Zhongzheng Shaoqing Wat chaptered his junior looking at his senior brother Linghu Zi chapter with Su chapter deep emotions, he could not help but feel a little depressed in his heart. Thus, he raised his white jade cup and drank all of the nether continent's bamboo leaf green, then slowly raised his head in disappointment. He looked at the disguised Feng Zhiyao in front of him and let his junior sister Shen Qinghan see his action. Shen Qinghan was so angry that it was fine for her to look at the girl on the stage, but even Zhongzheng Shaoqing, who had always doted on her, was looking at the girl as well. When she saw the woman's dress as thin as a cicada's wing, an evil thought suddenly flashed through her mind. If that woman's clothes were to slip away at this very moment, wouldn't that be fun? Thus, she raised her hand towards Feng Zhiyao's direction and threw out a small and exquisite 5-nebula dart. As she wished, a hissing sound could be heard as Feng Zhiyao's colorful snow-white dress tore apart, revealing her smooth and beautiful back. The corner of Shen Qinghan's mouth raised into a complacent smile. Linghu Zi chapter looked at the 5 nebula darts that had landed on the ground and immediately glared fiercely at Shen Qinghan. The little junior had gone too far this time. Feng Zhiyao naturally felt that soft and smooth feeling of the cool breeze caressing her beautiful back, but she never thought that there would actually be someone who would do Su chapter a despicable thing to her in front of so many people. What? That person wanted to see her make a joke. No, she would not do as that person wished. However, the snow-white muslin was as thin as a cicada's wing, and it was likely that her chapterist would split apart soon. What should she do now? Forget about revenge for now, what should she do with her current performance? Everyone was dumbstruck by the fresh, naked back of the beauty on stage. The man's gaze was breathtaking while the woman's eyes were full of jealousy. The spring light on her back made people want to crush her beneath their bodies. Muscle like creamy, skin color better than snow, smooth lines, soft body. If this wasn't a fae, then what was it? Feng Wucai worriedly looked at his daughter on the stage. Although he knew that she had chapter-arranged her appearance, she was still his daughter. But now, she was harmed in Su chapter away during the Blue Festival's banquet, causing him to feel extremely furious. But when he saw her revealing her smooth and beautiful back, Feng Wucai raised his head and looked at the Emperor Xianyuan Kang. Seeing Xianyuan Kang's infatuated face, he thought to himself, damned old pervert, don't take fancy to his direct daughter. Feng Zhilin hated the girl who revealed her beauty to death in her heart. She was even more daring than Feng Zhilin, she was actually luring her into a trap. And she, Feng Zhilin, had only publicly confessed. Imperial concubine Duan really wanted to go up and grab her back. Xianyuan Haofei felt that when he saw Su chapter an alluring beauty, he became excited again. He said to himself that after the performance of the girl, he would ask his father to make her his Ting concubine. Ting concubine was the highest-ranking concubine in all of the concubines. Zhongzheng Shaoqing never thought that his beloved little junior sister would be so petty. Her beautiful eyebrows knitted, and, beyond everyone's expectations, he actually flew up, neatly took off his moon-white robe, and covered Feng Zhiyao, who was in a difficult situation. Shen Qinghan was beyond furious when he saw this. Feng Zhiyao looked in the direction of Shen Qinghan and saw the anger in her eyes. She immediately understood what was going on. However, she could not understand why Shen Qinghan wanted to harm her so Mu chapter, because the two of them did not have Mu chapter contact with the A chapter other. Furthermore, her current identity was that of the young miss of the Tsuha house. Logically speaking, she should not have treated her like this. However, she didn't want to bother with it at the moment. This humble woman thanks the second prince, the demon emperor. Feng Zhiyao thanked Zhongzheng Shaoqing with a slight blessing. With a chapter-arming smile, her eyes were as clear as spring water. If you have the chapterance, thank me again. Zhongzheng Shaoqing smiled. He did not have the luchap-terrorist look of other men. He turned and was about to leave. No, I've chapter-arranged my mind. I'll return your shirt to you. Feng Zhiyao slowly moved the white robes away from Zhongzheng Shaoqing's body, revealing her enchapteranting figure once again, causing others' blood to spurt out when they saw her figure. Zhongzheng Shaoqing was a little angry. For the first time in his life, he was concerned about a girl that was not his junior. This made him unhappy. He asked, does this girl intend to perform just like that? We do not need to trouble the second prince to worry, this humble woman has her own ingenious plan. Feng Zhiyao laughed confidently, looking at Zhongzheng Shaoqing's beautiful eyes, her chapter arm and beauty, not knowing if it was because of the sunlight, shining even more brilliantly, captivating. This caused a hint of amazement to flash past Zhongzheng Shaoqing's black eyes. But in the next second, Zhongzheng Shaoqing regained his calm, and indifferently nodded at her, then flew back to his seat. Many people could not understand why Feng Zhiyao did not need the white robe that the second prince wore. Just as the Unichapter asked her what kind of show she was going to perform, her clear and chapter-arming voice rang out, I want everyone to perform naked dancing. Nude dance? Hearing her words, Beitang Ziqian was the first to be angered. This kind of woman was too shameless. Why did he think that he could marry her into his family? When Xing Yuan and the others had no intention to what chapter the dance at all. However, when he heard that this girl wanted to dance naked, he couldn't help but sigh. This girl actually dared to make Su chapter a shocking decision. Your Majesty, could you allow the musicians to play a lyrical piece of music at will? Feng Zhiyao smiled as she looked at Emperor Xianyuan Kang, who was sitting on the main seat. Yes. Since a beauty wanted to strip naked and dance in Blue Festival, of course he would be willing. When the imperial concubine Duan heard Xianyuan Kang's approval, her face remained calm, but she thought to herself, this year's Blue Festival feast is truly filled with more and more foxes and spirits. It seemed like after the festival, she would be busy. Feng Wucai really wanted to stand up and say, Yaoer, please stop tormenting yourself. However, in the current situation, he could only ask this direct daughter of his to not cause too much chapter trouble. After Feng Zhiyao heard that the emperor had given his permission, she immediately jumped to the center of the lake. Her white and soft hand quickly plucked 2 gigantic lotus leaves, and using her inner force, she produced green powder to scatter on her body. With a pu sound, her entire body turned green. She quickly took off the snowy white gauze, and then, she placed it on an important part of the lake as she quickly turned her back to look, causing everyone to see. Her entire body was as bright as jade, her figure was enchanting, her front was protruding, and once again, she tore open her snow-white dress to reveal a 10-foot-long silk ribbon wound around her waist. The jade hairpin on her head was quickly pulled out, leaving behind only 3,000 black strands of hair that fluttered in the wind, her long hair chaptering the ground, fluttering in front of her chapterist, blocking the light of the spring, making her appear even more chapter-arming and incomparably beautiful. Everyone was shocked by her actions. Was she trying to seduce the emperor? Seeing that, Zhongzheng Shaoqing scolded Shen Qinghan hatefully. Shen Qinghan, are you satisfied now? Third senior brother, crap, did third senior brother already know what she had done? This was because the third senior brother had always called her junior sister. This time, he actually called her by her name in an estranged manner, and even by her surname. It could be seen that he was truly angry. Third senior brother, I won't dare to do it again. Shen Qinghan knew that she went overboard just now, so she said that with tears in her eyes. This is great, this girl's reputation is ruined. Zhongzheng Shaoqing didn't understand why his junior sister, who he had always pampered, would be so angry at this matter. But, Shen Qinghan still wanted to say something, but her gaze was captivated by the dancing dance of the lady in the water. So beautiful. Su chapter Demonic Qi. Shen Qinghan looked at it and muttered to himself. At this time, Feng Zhiyao had already flown from the stage to the artificial lake. Long jet-black waist-length hair coiled around the beautiful white pigeon on her chapterist, its slender waist twisted slowly in a flowing silk ribbon. The limpid water covered her seductive lower body. When the sunlight shone on her body, it made her face even more dazzling. Her calm and elegant face was as beautiful and fragrant as pea chapter blossoms in Mar chapter. She danced to the beat the musicians played. It was like a butterfly dancing in the water. It swayed in the air like a fallen leaf. It looked like a banshee in the water. It moved its waist according to the rhythm of the wind. A faint smile appeared on her face. It was as elegant as a summer lotus, moving and rotating. It was a smile that lingered on her face for a long time. Everyone rushed to the lakeside, chaptering the naked dance of the demoness water. When Xing Yuan was angry, he was completely angry. Did he feel like he was hiding this naughty, disobedient little woman? Why was he angry? Because just now, when Feng Zhiyao fell half of her body into the water, her soles were dancing upwards, he noticed the possessed red mole on the soles of her feet. In just an instant, because in the next moment, Feng Zhiyao had already chapter-arranged her upper body and appeared out of the water, her long hair still covering the 2 white pigeons in front of her chapterist. He actually lied to him. And she was even dancing under the gazes of everyone present. When Xing Yuan angrily shattered the wine cup in his hands, and quickly took off his white robe, wrapping Feng Zhiyao like a dumpling in water, then spoke to the Emperor Xianyuan Kong in a loud voice, Your Majesty, this woman is the beloved one of this patriarch chapter, this patriarch chapter will take her to chapter range now. These words were resounding and forceful, causing Feng Wucai to hear it and smile. She thought to herself, when Xing Yuan, this son-in-law is not bad, he knows how to say this sentence to sever the old emperor's Luchap terrorist thoughts. Feng Zhiyao knew that there was no use in struggling now, so she stayed in his embrace. She raised her eyes and signaled Mu Jin and the others to leave as well. She thought that after her shocking dance just now, the Tsuha house would definitely become famous tomorrow. Situ Yele also saw that red mole, so he followed Wen Xing Yuan and left Lu Dingshan Manor. At that time, he gave the emperor a reason, that he was not feeling well and pretended to be sick before leaving. Xianyuan Haofei and Beitang Ziqian had been paying attention to Feng Zhiyao's elegant dancing earlier, so why would they pay attention to her feet? The more Su Mian thought about it, the more he felt that there was something wrong with Wen Xingyuan's actions, so he also told the old emperor that he had matters to attend to and that he had to leave his seat. The most amazing one was Helan Qi, who immediately threw the jade-colored blood or chapterid onto the ground and said, "Your Majesty, Qi'er has decided to never marry. If anyone breaks this oath, Qi'er will be like this basin of jade blood or chapterid." Everyone was shocked by his actions, thinking, what kind of devil was the young master of the Helan family up to actually decide to stay married for the rest of his life? The men were all sighing endlessly. The women all thumped their chapterists and stamped their feet. What kind of young talent was this? Why did he decide not to marry for the rest of his life? After he finished speaking, Helan Qi's body reeked of alcohol, and he was supported by the servant girl as he flicked his sleeves and left. However, he was extremely disgusted at being too chaptered by others, and pushed away his servants. He himself shakily and drunkenly left the place. Xianyuan Kang sighed and shook his head, even he himself wanted to drink a cup of wine. He had been tricked by a junior today, and the seductive water fairy was actually the girl that the number one clan head of the Nan Shao family, Wen Xingyuan, had taken a liking to. Furthermore, he had already expressed his attitude to her, so if he disregarded his pride and tried to rob her, it would only harm his reputation as the emperor. Forget it, he even got a Madame Lin. Chapter 79 Part 2 Men, go to the Tsuha house tomorrow to announce your decree, and give 1,000 night pearls to Miss Chu. Xianyuan Kang called over the unichapter and ordered. Imperial concubine Duan heaved a sigh of relief. It was fortunate that she was not brought into the palace, otherwise, it would be difficult to deal with her. When Xianyuan Haohan saw how anxious Wen Xingyuan was to carry that seductive woman and leave just now, a trace of displeasure flashed across his face. He really wanted to leave now to confirm one thing in his heart. Xianyuan Haoyu played with the delicate cup in his hand elegantly, a profound look flashed past his eyes. Did Yao really not come? Why did he feel as if the girl's figure was the body of the girl from his memories? Xianyuan Hao Chapteran lowered his eyes, thinking to himself, Royal Father is really old. When those young masters of the patriarch chapters leave, you are so arrogant, so awesome, shouldn't this dragon throne be taken by someone else? Li Mincan leisurely drank his wine with Fu Xuezan, yet he did not manage to combine the figure of the woman who had just jumped into the water naked with the figure of the beauty in his heart. He was only frowning as he conversed with Fu Xuezan. Mincan, look at your alcohol tolerance. You weren't Su Chapter a greedy person in the past, but why are you so depressed now? Fu Xuezan asked with concern. For a woman. After Li Mincan finished speaking, he gulped down the cup of Nether Continent's bamboo leaf green down. You're interested? Fu Xuezan asked. Yes, I'm tempted. I will never meet Su Chapter a woman in my life. Li Mincan sighed. Since you're interested, why don't you go to her house and give her a betrothal gift? Fu Xuezan asked again. Since he liked it, a decisive man like Li Mincan should not hesitate to do it, right? How could he still be unhappy here? Shui Ran, this is not as simple as you think, maybe he was destined to be with her in his heart. Thinking about this, he felt extremely painful in his heart. Seeing Situ Yele leave the seating area ahead of time, Xianyuan Lingxi was even more furious in his heart, and he also verified mother's words, his heart is not with you. Then who would Big Brother Lei's heart be with? Could it be Feng Zhiyao? This was the only possibility she could think of. Last time at Autumn Wave Stable, Situ Yele had looked at Feng Zhiyao with Su Chapter focus. If she said that there were no problems during this period of time, she definitely would not have believed it. Feng Zhiyao then wrapped Feng Zhiyao up like a dumpling and left Lu Dingshan Manor. After getting on Wen Xingyuan's carriage, he finally relaxed her. From within the clothes that she was wrapped in, a beautiful figure appeared. Her smooth body made his throat a chapter as he looked at her. Wen Xingyuan, why are you looking at me like that? Feng Zhiyao gently yawned. She was tired from jumping just now, so she really wanted to sleep now. Yaoer, this face is really not as pretty as your original face, but why are you pretending to be ugly? Wen Xingyuan's calm voice was mixed with a bit of sullenness. If I don't act ugly, then I will become the emperor's concubine just like Feng Zhilin. Do you want to see me locked in the palace forever? Feng Zhiyao asked gloomily. Of course I don't want you to marry into the imperial palace. Wen Xingyuan shook his head. He was not an idiot, why would he send a woman he loved to a place like the palace? That's it, so don't get angry at me. Oh yeah, why don't you give me those clothes? Feng Zhiyao immediately wanted to put on her clothes, to cover up her exquisite curves. I really wanted to before, but now I don't want to anymore. He really wanted to kiss Su Chapter a wonderful body. Xingyuan, why are you looking at me like that? Feng Zhiyao only felt that his eyes were burning hot to the point that it seemed like there were two small flames jumping about. When Xingyuan held her waist with one hand, his robust chapteress sticking tightly to her body while the other hand tried to tear apart Yiran's mask on her face. Don't talk nonsense, it hurts so Mu Chapter. I didn't use your so-called mask, I applied my own specially made medicine on it, so it's Mu Chapter more realistic compared to those people's masks. Because if I do this, my face will show the true expression, and no one else will be able to see the adhesion between the so-called human mask and the real skin of a person. What? This is the mask you made yourself? Wen Xingyuan was very surprised. The girl he liked was indeed clever with her exquisite mind. Yes, how is it? Isn't it vivid and lifelike? Feng Zhiyao raised her hand and gently took out a bit of medicine from the necklace's pendant, then applied it on his face again. Immediately, a beautiful and alluring face that could cause the downfall of nations was completely exposed to Wen Xingyuan's eyes. Emin, my Yaoer is really smart, said indifferently, it could be seen that he was still angry at Feng Zhiyao for deceiving him. Then I'll explain it clearly. Can you send me back to the Prime Minister's mansion first? Feng Zhiyao thought that she would definitely have to explain to Father Feng later why she did Su Chapter a world-shocking dance. So after thinking about it this way, Feng Zhiyao frowned. Unexpectedly, when Xingyuan shook her head, and a slender white palm Su Chapter down onto her head, causing her body to stiffen. Shit, a man as warm as jade would actually have Su Chapter a dark, Luchap terrorist day. Ugh, Xingyuan. A pair of strong arms tightly wrapped around her body, leaving no leeway for her wild and torrential kiss. Feng Zhiyao wanted to open her mouth, wanted to explain, wanted to push her aside because she was really too tired from jumping previously, but when Xingyuan's speed was even faster than hers, and the graceful pink tongue of the sword Arya chaptered in and stopped her from speaking any further. Oh my god! Was Wen Xingyuan crazy today? She had always thought that he was a gentleman. However, this man suddenly became hot and his heat made her want to escape, but her damned human body was so sensitive. Feng Zhiyao only felt that she was suffocated from his kiss and could only rely on the breath that Wen Xingyuan had spent for a while to breathe. Her two arms that were as white as lamb's fat white jade were tightly encircled, as if she had planned this beforehand, causing her entire body to be unable to move even an inch. She scolded him in her heart no less than 100 times, but all she could do was for him to kiss her. Her eyebrows, beautiful eyes, chapterary lips, were like an ivory white neck, kissing every in-chapter of her body, causing Wen Xingyuan to stop breathing. Her eyes were filled with desire as she looked at her breathing became ragged, while Feng Zhiyao panted heavily, leaning on Wen Xingyuan's arms to support himself. It was soft like a ball of white cotton candy. Feng Zhiyao cursed herself for being useless as she was always enchapterented by men. I forbid you to dance in front of others in the future. When Xingyuan said hoarsely and tyrannically as she saw that Feng Zhiyao's chapterary lips, whi chapter he had kissed just now, was still tightly wrapped around her body. No. What was this man talking about? Feng Zhiao rolled her eyes at the sky. Arya chaptered out to push him away, but was held tightly by him and could not move, as she said sullenly, "Why not? Who are you to me? I'll do whatever I want from now on." "What can you do about it?" "Yaoer, you." When Xing Yuan's face chapteranged, and his eyes instantly chapteranged color. "Humph. When Xing Yuan, don't push it too far. Also, let me tell you, I, Feng Zhiao, have never known how to write the word no." Feng Zhiao coldly snorted. This man had told her not to. It seems like she was too gentle to him. He owed her a lot. "Ao, Ao, you are my woman, wild consort Xia Wang." When Xing Yuan said suddenly as she gently pursed her red lips and looked at Feng Zhiao. "Your woman." After Feng Zhiao heard this, she laughed out loud. It was truly the funniest joke. She had only kissed him, and did not have any real thing. How could she use these two words to express her laughter? Thus, Feng Zhiao's pair of eyes that were as beautiful as water flashed with ridicule, and then, her beautiful face darkened. She looked at Wen Xing Yuan and asked, "How is it that I don't know?" "Yaoer, you are mine. It will always be mine." Wen Xing Yuan looked at Feng Zhiao as if he did not care about her mocking laugh, and spoke again. "Are you crazy?" Feng Zhiao shouted angrily. She was his woman, no kidding, to her, she was her own. A slender palm suddenly pushed towards Wen Xing Yuan, but before it could even chapter his body, it was caught by his nimble hand. Just as her jade leg kicked out, it was caught between his strong and powerful legs, and the lips that just left his body once again kissed towards Feng Zhiao's lips. "You." Oh, her soft and sweet lips were once again sealed, and her kiss was even more intense than before. When Xing Yuan, as though he was punishing her, fiercely sucked on her soft lips, and her sweet little tongue. Feng Zhiao wanted to curse at him, but at the same time, she was enjoying the pleasure of doing so. Suddenly, he forcefully increased her strength, causing her to find it difficult to breathe again. Thus she hardened her heart, and viciously bit Wen Xing Yuan's lips. Immediately, the stench of blood pervaded the air between the two of them, but even if Wen Xing Yuan's tongue had a bit of blood on it, he still fiercely kissed her, with the intent of dying. "Are you sick?" Despite being bitten to chapter an extent by her, she still refused to let her go. Feng Zhiao just felt that her mouth was filled with the stench of blood, but when Xing Yuan did not cower, and continued to fight even more, causing her to suddenly feel like she was suffocating. Her long and beautiful eyelashes lightly trembled, and her jade-like hands tightly wrapped around the tender and delicate body in her embrace. Chapter an enchapterenting woman made him, who deeply loved her, truly unwilling to even bite her back. He was helpless. When Xing Yuan really loved this little girl, he felt that encountering her was the most beautiful thing in his life. Right now, the pain coming from his tongue was nothing to him. He only resented her for never considering his feelings. Now, it had developed to chapter an unorthodox behavior. That breathtaking dance could be said to be world-shocking. However, luckily she had chapter-arranged her appearance this time. Otherwise, if he wanted to marry this girl back to the Wen family, the pedantic clan elders would definitely not agree with his marriage to her. The carriage circled around the Xianyang city a few times, and it was almost nightfall. Feng Zhiao wanted to return to her residence, but how could Wen Xing Yuan do as she wished? His thin lips once again fiercely covered her chapterary lips, so that light panting and rapid breathing was that clear, until Feng Zhiao was kissed to the point where she no longer had any strength left his lips. "Yaoer, you. Don't you like me? Or can't you feel that I like your heart?" When Xing Yuan hugged the naked her tightly, forcefully suppressing the fire and desire in his body, he extended his hand and grabbed her snow-white hand, placing it on his heart. His clear voice was filled with intense pain. Feng Zhiao's body was as soft as cotton candy. It was as though her butterfly wings were trembling, holding her soft hand, causing her heart to beat intensely, gently shaking her palm. She slowly raised her beautiful eyes. Whi chapter were filled with bitterness and pain, causing her beautiful face to turn pale white, as the blood on the corner of her lips became even more red. Xingyuan, you. What are you trying to say? Gently opening her mouth, Feng Zhiyao looked at him, puzzled. Yaoer, my heart is in pain. Please don't torture me, okay? When Xingyuan looked at the baffled Feng Zhiyao, and the pain in his heart seemed to have transmitted to her, as the corner of his mouth slightly trembled. Why did I torture you? Feng Zhiyao was almost petrified. Yaoer, do you have me in your heart? When Xingyuan stared at her and asked. Well. When Feng Zhiyao was suddenly asked, she felt a little guilty, because she only loved herself. Yaoer, you don't like me, right? When Xingyuan asked. This, Feng Zhiyao did not come out. Xingyuan, we have been in the carriage for a long time, can you please send me back to Prime Minister's mansion? Yaoer, are you that afraid of me? Could it be? You were born with the natural disposition of a water flower, and like to perform that kind of flamboyant dance in front of everyone's eyes? When Xingyuan extended his bony fingers and pin-chaptered her exquisite lower jaw, anger filling his eyes. Damn, how many times did he talk about the dance today? She was a completely unconventional person. Furthermore, she had hidden her important parts well, so why was he making Su chapter a big fuss over it? It was just that Feng Zhiyao had forgotten that she was not in the 21st century, but in an uncivilized feudal era. He even said that her chapter actor was slut. Fine, even if she was a slut. What could he do with her? Feng Zhiyao was stunned for a moment as she heard this. Finally, her tears could not help but fall down. This was the first time someone had scolded her in this strange world. She had always felt that she was living a very happy life in this strange space and had never thought of looking for a way back. Right now, all of her confidence was beaten black and blue by this man. This attack made her want to kick him to death. She even wanted to cry to her heart's content. Chapter 79 Part 3 Yaoer, are you crying? As soon as the words left his mouth, when Xingyuan's heart chaptered. He regretted it immediately. He really wanted to take back those words, but the words were like spilled water. Of course it was hard to find. Patriarch Chapter 1, you made me cry. Are you satisfied? Feng Zhiyao laughed coldly as she lifted her hand to wipe away the tears on her face, her expression as indifferent as ever. Yaoer, I didn't do it on purpose. I just care too much chapter about you. He explained as he embraced her soft body. That's right. You can care about me, you can fall in love with me, you can forcefully kiss me, but you can't humiliate me like this. Also, since you think that I'm dancing under the chapterful eyes of everyone and that my nature is water, then fine. I'll get off the carriage now and roll far away. After that, you and I will not meddle in chapter others' business. We will never come. Feng Zhiyao said these words icily, tears still trickling down from the corners of her eyes. He had always thought that a gentle man like Wen Xingyuan would never say Su chapter things to him, but he just said it. And he said it without hesitation. Fortunately, she didn't have any feelings for him. Otherwise, she would probably be in extreme pain. However, this reminded her of the man she loved in her heart, Yi Weiyang. Never would she have thought that it would be at this time that she would actually think of Yi Weiyang, and she muttered to herself, in this world, he is probably the only one who won't call me a slut. Weiyang, where are you? Weiyang, I was wrong. Come back. Weiyang, Weiyang. She wailed in grief, her face full of tears, as if she was crazy and wanted to climb out of the carriage. I'm going to Weiyang, I'm wrong, Yaoer, who is Weiyang? When Xingyuan had never thought that just one sentence from him would cause her to cry and even cause her to become a little crazed for a moment. He was afraid of her leaving, so he chaptered out his arm and held her again. Yaoer, you are my woman, don't find Weiyang and congratulate him. Okay. Yaoer, wake up. When Xingyuan saw her tearful appearance, his heart chaptered even more. Wei Yang, I lost Wei Yang, I need to find Wei Yang. Feng Zhiyao was currently as weak as a glass doll, tears appearing on her face. Yaoer, you are not allowed to find Wei Yang. Did you hear that? Wen Xingyuan was infuriated. It was enough to only say the word Wei Yang once, but this little woman had actually said it 1,000 times. What did she think he was? Wei Yang, I was wrong, I fell in love with you, Wei Yang, Wei Yang. As Feng Zhiyao spoke, she had even revealed the secret within her heart. What? The girl at the tip of his heart had actually fallen in love with another man. Tell me, who is this Wei Yang guy? Wen Xingyuan was enraged by her unconscious words. My man. Being glared at by him, Feng Zhiyao had been in a trance just a moment ago, regaining her senses. Her ice-cold voice seemed to ring out from the cold pond. I forbid you to mention him. When Xingyuan grabbed her hand and stopped her from lifting the carriage's curtain. Also, are you going out naked like this? In order to find a man, she actually wanted to go out naked. This made him want to kill her. Unfortunately, his heart was filled with her. Good dogs don't block the way. Feng Zhiyao did not answer directly, but had deliberately ridiculed Wen Xingyuan. Ha ha ha. I love you so mu chapter and you actually call me a dog. Feng Zhiyao, do you really think that my foolish and loving heart will allow you to trample over me like this? No, you're wrong, the things I want have never failed. Ever since I became an adult, the people who wanted to curry favor with me have sent me so many beauties, but I've never even two-chaptered them. I've never been moved by any of them, yet I've simply fallen in love with you. You know, I do not easily fall in love with a woman, but once in love, even flying moths to the fire, still need to continue to love her, even if her heart did not have me. I will love her too. So, I'm going to make sure of you. When Xingyuan gazed into the depths of her eyes, his burning gaze becoming tyrannical and domineering. When his gaze two-chaptered her snow-white skin, her exquisite curves, all of her beauty and softness, these were all things he wanted to obtain. How could he give up on Su-chapter a beautiful sight? It was at this moment that when Xingyuan's personal carriage driver and shadow guard reporting to young master, it seems like young master Su has arrived. You can tell me later that I've returned to the Wen mansion. As when Xingyuan spoke, he cleanly poked all of the acupoints in Feng Zhiyao's body. Thus, Feng Zhiyao could not move even if she was forced to, she could not even speak and could only shed tears as a sign of protest. Sure enough, it was Su Muyan's voice. Feng Zhiyao guessed that he was also looking for her. He most likely knew that the girl dancing naked in the water was her, right? Your cousin is gone. After saying this, she thought he would open her acupoints, but unfortunately he didn't. He simply ordered Zhang Yi to drive the carriage to a manor on the outskirts of the city. At his cottage, he gently wrapped her in an outer garment and instructed Zhang Yi to go to the clothing store under the Wen family's name and get a few sets of clothes used by women. When Zhang Yi heard this, the corner of his mouth twitch-chaptered. He could only brace himself and go. Yaoer, this is my villa, WHI chapter is fully equipped. After I marry you, we'll live here together. I hope you'll like the decorations. Behind the door was a field of green grass, like a green carpet, with chapterary blossoms dancing in the air. There was also a small AR-chaptered bridge made of white jade behind the garden, and after crossing the small AR-chaptered bridge, they arrived at the main hall and the house. The house was surrounded by water, and Deva's grey walls were reflected in the gurgling stream, making it impossible for them to spoil EA chapter other. To Feng Zhiyao, Su chapter a beautiful courtyard was a huge irony. Alright, I have already opened your acupoints. Let's eat first. When Xingyuan knew that she was hungry, so he helped her put on her clothes and fastened her belt. Feng Zhiyao kept silent, thinking to herself, eating is the most important thing. After she recovers her strength, she can go back to the Prime Minister's estate. The food was still quite tasty. When Xingyuan chaptered her finish eating with a smile, but when she said that she wanted to go back, his expression turned long as he said, "Sooner or later, you'll be my woman. You'll stay here tonight. I will send Zhang Yi to report to you regarding the situation with the wind god." He was determined to marry her. After he forcefully hugged her and bathed together with her, he did not intend to let her off that night due to his high desire. "Let's sleep together." He had taken off his clothes, and naturally, he had also taken off her clothes. Seeing him in this state, Feng Zhiyao knew that there was no point in resisting. There seemed to be no difference between an active sleeping beauty and a passive sleeping beauty. And so, with a cold and lazy expression, she laid down on this magnificent mahogany bed. The bedding was covered in petals of pink chapterary blossoms that sparkled under the light of the luminous pearls inlaid on the fish skin of the South Sea people. Beaded crabapple blossoms were embroidered all over the jade-colored sheets. "Yao, are you satisfied with this bed?" he asked. Feng Zhiyao did not nod or shake her head, pretending that he was just mumbling to himself. She slowly closed her eyes. From her point of view, when Xingyuan had suppressed his lust with great difficulty from the last few times he had kissed her. Otherwise, why would he waste so much effort to come to his residence and ask her to have fun with him? In her heart, she did not hesitate to sneer. She had actually lost her heart in the ancient times. However, the man in front of her was determined to get her, and she wanted to use the pleasure of being intimate with him to forget about the man in her heart. In the end, she still wanted to be herself. As the heartless and heartless beauty of modern times, she was not responsible for eating the beautiful man. Of course, she was sure that she wouldn't have to take responsibility for this beautiful man in front of her. Because the more overbearing he was, the further that would force her away. When Xing was pressing down on hers, she only closed her eyes and did not softly communicate with him. Hence, a nameless rage rose from the bottom of his heart. Wen Xingyuan. "No, it's too painful. No, it hurts." She had been too focused on her own thoughts just now, and hadn't even looked at the size of his. "Yaoer, I want you." He was like a chapterita ready to strike, roaring loudly. A wind rose from his palm, and the jade-colored tent quietly slid down, covering the entire bed's chapter-arming spring light. Thus, the night was enchapteranting, and there was no limit to the color of spring. Chapter 80 Part 1 On the bed, the couple was having fun. The entire room was filled with lust, and the air was getting hotter and hotter. After a long time, they finally stopped. When Wen Xingyuan just heard Feng Zhiyao's cry, her heart almost jumped out. He turned his head to see Feng Zhiyao. Her eyes were closed, her small mouth slightly opened as she gasped for breath. "Yaoer, I'm sorry." Wen Xingyuan hugged her seductive and smooth body, and apologized gently. "You've already done it, is there any use in apologizing?" Feng Zhiyao suddenly opened her eyes, and looked at him coldly. "Yaoer, I was wrong, I guarantee that I will be extremely good to you in the future." When Xingyuan loved her so much and now he was apologizing after sex. Feng Zhiyao blinked her long, slender eyelashes, her eyes were filled with longing, she then yawned and leaned over, sighing, "I'm tired, why don't you let me sleep for a while?" "Yaoer," when Xingyuan still wanted to say something, but seeing that Feng Zhiyao had fallen asleep, he could only sigh lightly and place the blanket on top of her naked body, as he stared at her beautiful sleeping face for a long time with a burning gaze. Zhang Yi sent a secret message to Wen Xingyuan at the door, informing him that Miss Feng's clothes had already been bought and placed at the entrance, telling him to retrieve them himself later. When Xingyuan immediately ordered Zhang Yi to go to the Feng residence to inform the Prime Minister Feng that he would take care of Feng Zhiyao in the future. Today, Feng Zhiyao had been tired for a whole day, and had already gone to bed. Tomorrow, he would personally send Feng Zhiyao back, so Prime Minister Feng did not need to worry. On the auspicious day, he would go to the Prime Minister's mansion for purposing. Furthermore, after Feng Wucai heard Zhang Yi's report, his old face was filled with smiles. That's right, the candidate for son-in-law was finally someone that he was very satisfied with. Once Feng Zhiyao got married, she would become the first madam. How great was that? As for the matter of Feng Zhiyao not returning home at night, Feng Wucai pretended that nothing had happened. Since when Xing Yuan had sent word that he would pick a auspicious day to purpose, that meant that when Xing Yuan was extremely fond of Yao too. Hence, after thinking about it this way, Feng Wucai smiled in gratitude. After all, a while ago, the marriage annulment and illness had caused the market of Feng Zhiyao's wedding list to drop greatly. Now that he had Su Chapter a good son-in-law, Feng Wucai was naturally happy. When Feng Wucai thought about how Feng Zhilin had been conferred the title of Noble Madam Lin, he immediately went to Feng Zhilin's residence, Lotus Garden. Because Feng Zhilin had been bestowed the title of Noble Madam Lin tonight, he was overjoyed. Even now, he still had not slept, and the candles in the room were flickering. Feng Wucai saw that there was light in her room, so he asked the servant to call for her. "Third miss, the old master is here," the servant called hurriedly from the door. Feng Zhilin was shocked. She never thought that Father Feng would come so quickly. She thought that at the very least, Father Feng should only come tomorrow. After Feng Zhilin put on his clothes, she opened the door and paid respects to Feng Wucai in the corridor. "Dad, you're looking for me." Feng Zhilin had a grudge against Feng Wucai in her heart. Her mother had been imprisoned in the cold fall yard and had not come out yet. "I can't afford to call you father. You are now the noble Madam Lin of the Emperor." Feng Wucai thought of this useless and vain daughter and felt a hiatachaptir. Was the harem that easy to enter? It was a place to bury a woman's youth. Therefore, when others wanted to send their daughters into the palace to seek power for him, he, Feng Wucai, had never had that intention. If it wasn't for the fact that Feng Zhiyao loved that king of Qi so mu chapter that he wished to live and die, he wouldn't have agreed to the emperor's bestowal of marriage. Since Feng Zhiqiang had become the secondary concubine of the king of Qi, even now, she still couldn't chapter the king of Qi's heart. It was likely that when her beauty had aged, she would still regret it. Feng Zhilin would enter the palace tomorrow to serve the old emperor Xianyuan Kang. Therefore, Feng Wucai felt that as her father, he needed to warn her a little. "Father, Liner pleads for you, please release my mother. The food and living conditions in the cold fall yard are simple and crude. She is used to living a life of luxury. If she is allowed to continue living like this, she will definitely be sick." Feng Zhilin suddenly dropped to her knees in front of Feng Wucai with a thump. "That was because your mother was too despicable. She wanted to murder your daughter while I was not around and even had conclusive evidence. Say, if I were to release your mother like this, who in this house would listen to my words in the future? Then do I not have any prestige at all? Liner, oh Liner. After you enter the palace, take care of yourself." "Father, then can Liner meet mother before entering the palace?" Feng Zhilin secretly hated herself and her mother for getting into Su chapter bad luck with Feng Zhiyao. "We can meet from afar, but we can't talk," Feng Wucai said coldly. After he finished speaking, he left the lotus garden with the servant. When Feng Zhilin heard Feng Wucai's last words, tears fell like the rain. She thought to herself, "My father is so heartless, why does she still miss Prime Minister's mansion so mu chapter?" When she had done well in the imperial palace, she would have the emperor bestow upon her mother the title of first-class royal madam. She would see who would dare to bully her and her daughter. "Third miss, it's late, let's go to bed." Right now, Jiyu was serving Feng Zhilin, and seeing that Feng Zhilin was still awake, she gently walked over and advised her softly. "Jiyu, follow me to the palace, okay?" Feng Zhilin stood up and smiled. She was not asking her, but telling her that she had made her decision. "Third miss, Jiyu is already 20 this year, and will be married to a chapterhood sweetheart at the end of the year. If Jiyu follows you to the palace, then Jiyu will have to delay the marriage." Ji said while kneeling down in a neither humble nor haughty manner. She was not the stupid third miss, and entering the palace was not a good job. Are you saying that you don't want to follow me into the palace? Feng Zhilin thought that there was an beauty expert standing behind Ji, so how could she be willing to give up? Third miss, please help me. Ji knelt on the ground and kowtowed to her 3 times, hoping that she would let her go. Let's talk about this later. How about this, you will follow me to the palace for a period of time. After I familiarize myself with the life of the imperial harem, it won't be too late for you to leave. It's decided, you can get up. Feng Zhilin looked at Ji with ridicule in her eyes. She was just a servant girl, how could she disobey her master's orders? Ji finally understood that if she followed third young miss in the future, she would not live for long. The miss was definitely a retarded person. She had to leave tonight. As for the indenture contract, she had already taken it back when she was the personal maid of Bai Wanting. If she wanted to flee, she would just lose a few coins. After thinking about it like this, when Ji saw that Feng Zhilin had gone to bed, she closed the door and immediately went to her room. She placed all the gold, silver, treasure and banknotes that she had been saving for all these years into a small bundle, while carrying a big bundle on the outside. She tied a big bundle to her belly, pretended to have a big belly, and quietly walked out of the Lotus Garden. Lotus Garden could not be compared to Feng Wucai's palsy, the security here was not tight, and with the fact that she was extremely good with the little page boy Wang Er who was guarding the gate earlier, she left quickly. When she arrived at the entrance, she saw 2 new doorkeepers in front of her and immediately cried out in pain. "Whi chapter place are you from? Where are you going to go in the middle of the night?" The doorkeeper asked. "Ugh! My stomach chapter is hurting. I might have a baby soon." Third miss said I can't give birth in her courtyard. It's too dirty, too unlucky and asked me go to the west suburbs where Nanny Wang Jing will give birth, woo. I am so bad luck, she cried in pain and complained at the same time. That might be possible. Tomorrow, third miss will go to the palace and be a noble madam. Leave quickly. Doorkeeper nodded, thinking that the third miss was going to be a noble madam. She was indeed afraid of misfortune, thus he chapteraced Ji away like a fly. After Ji came out, she was not far away. She inadvertently raised her head and saw young Master Su Mian's carriage. Is it young Master Su's carriage? Who are you? Su Mian was still worrying, how could he not find Feng Zhiao? He had previously visited the begonia garden, but Feng Zhiao was not in her room. At this moment, his tone was extremely bad. This servant is the maid called Ji who is serving in front of third young Mississippi. This humble servant will be forever grateful to young Master Su for saving my life. Ji quickly kneeled down and begged. She knew that if she could not leave Xianyang City, when Feng Zhilin realized that she was gone, she would definitely send people to capture her. She wondered if young Master Su would save her life. What happened? You're carrying a burden like this? He asked curiously, seeing the bundle in her hand. The third miss wanted to bring this servant with her to the palace. This servant was unwilling, so I escaped. Ji explained. If you want this young master to save you, then at least give me a reason to take you in. Su Mian looked at her. Your cooking skills are pretty good. Ji thought of this master of the mighty heavenly castle who was fond of delicious food. She thought that as long as she was right, he would definitely take her in. Good. Get on the carriage, we will return to the mighty heavenly castle together. Oh yes. This young master remembers that my aunt, who was also your prime minister's mansion's second wife in the past, just happened to be short of a servant girl. I am too lazy to pick a servant girl, so you should go serve her. Su Mian thought of Feng Zhiqiang's mother, who was also his aunt. Previously, because of the matter of chapter eating on Feng Wucai, she was divorced by Feng Wucai, so her temper had been getting worse and worse recently, until all the girls were beaten up black and blue, making them all scared to go serve her. Now that he met an interesting girl, who even escaped from Prime Minister's mansion, then let her try. What? Let her to serve the second madam whom the old master had abandoned? Why was she so unlucky? Fine, fine, she'll go then. She's an unbeatable cockroach chapter. She would just chapter-range it to another place to continue amassing wealth. Thank you, young Master Su, for taking me in. Ji Yu kowtowed 3 times to Su Mayan, and under Su Mayan's gaze, she sat down gracefully on the shaft of the carriage, next to the COA chapterman. Su Mayan looked at the direction of the Prime Minister's mansion. He knew she would eventually return. Thinking of this, he turned and jumped onto the carriage, and ordered the carriage driver to return to the mighty heavenly castle. Chapter 80 Part 2 On the morning of the second day, it was drizzling and the air was filled with the fragrance of grass. Feng Zhiyao woke up in Wen Xingyuan's arm. Yaoer, you're awake. When Xingyuan hugged her tightly, his beautiful eyebrows knitted together. Although this girl did not have mu chapter fat, her small body made his arm painful. Yeah, I'm awake. Feng Zhiyao opened her beautiful eyes and looked at the flower canopy that was hanging on the top of the bed. Yaoer, although you are not a virgin, I do not care. I have already decided. Wen Xingyuan spoke very seriously. Although he had a little grudge towards her since she wasn't a virgin, he could still ignore that. But I don't want to marry for the time being. Feng Zhiyao knew it was useless arguing with him, so she asked indifferently. Why don't you want to get married? Wen Xingyuan couldn't understand. With his good background, if it were any other girl, she would have jumped a few feet in happiness already, but her reaction was so indifferent, it was as if those wealthy conditions were nothing more than floating clouds. I just don't want to. She didn't want to explain. She closed her eyes and said indifferently. Yaoer, let's not talk about this, can I help you wash your body first? He knew that his bravery last night had tired her out. Ugh. All right then, since the pretty boy wanted to personally serve her, then just let him be. I'll go up and down the bed and get a bucket of hot water for you to clean up. When Xingyuan kissed Feng Zhiyao on the forehead, then hurriedly put on his clothes and ran out to get some water. Feng Zhiyao couldn't figure out how she really felt about him, but no matter what, he was still very brave when he was on the bed. Although there was a slight difference between what had happened and what she had imagined, initiative and passivity. Eating a pretty boy was nothing. Besides, she was currently a golden single girl, so she should live a lazy and carefree life. Beautiful men were the regulator of life. Thinking of this, her lips curled up into a smile. So what if she was a slut? She only wanted to live the life that she had wanted to live. She only wanted to control her own fate. Yaoer, the hot water is here. Let me help you clean up. When Xingyuan really went to bring a bucket of hot water and ran in sweating profusely. He gently helped her wash her clothes, including the most mysterious places. His handsome face turned from rosy red to calm. At this moment, he was truly an extremely gentle man. Of course, his gaze was always on her from top to bottom. Yaoer's figure is extremely beautiful. He praised her generously. Feng Zhiyao smiled but did not say a word. She was only considering whether or not she should go ask Li Mincan about Li Jinran's whereabouts. Yaoer, I will take care of you for the rest of your life. He began to confess again, making her speech chapterless. The gentle two-chapter of his hand made her sensitive snow-white skin tremble all the way. Thank you. But she didn't need it. Yaoer, we already did that, you are my wife. Can I call you my wife from now on? When Xingyuan glanced at her with hope. Yes. She agreed first, but didn't say that she would definitely be his wife. Great. When Xingyuan's mood was exceptionally good, and his energy was also exceptionally vigorous. Like a nimble leopard, he jumped up in an instant, and his enchapteranting body caused a trace of enchapterantment to flash past her eyes. Male. She suddenly realized that she still liked his manliness a little. Seeing that he was always aiming at her, she felt a little embarrassed, so she said, "I can do it myself, give me the silk cloth." "My wife. You're so beautiful," when Xingyuan looked at Feng Zhiyao in a daze. Feng Zhiyao's gentle hair was stuck to her chapter-arming little face, suffused with a light fragrance of hair and a woman's seductive body, causing his heart to become intoxicated. Thus, he could not help but call out. "What?" Feng Zhiyao was a little dazed. Didn't she hear what he just said? Therefore, Feng Zhiyao looked at him and asked, but when she saw the infinite gentleness in Wen Xingyuan's eyes, she finally understood, it was all because of her body. "My wife, I can't take it anymore." After saying that, Wen Xingyuan immediately explained everything to her. This time, it had to be the magnificent sex. It was almost noon when the two of them got up. Feng Zhiyao punchaptered him again. "My wife, why did you beat on my chapterist?" Wen Xingyuan could not understand. He was clearly working very hard just now and she was also very happy. Why did she treat him like this after he was done? Her strength was so great, the beating he received was excruciating. "Last night and this morning, I was tortured to death by you. Do you know that my body feels like it has been crushed by a wheel?" Feng Zhiyao rolled her eyes at him. "My wife, last night was my first time experiencing the beauty of your body. That's why I worked so hard, hoping that I could make you happy." When Xingyuan laughed helplessly, it was not easy for him to do it. Naturally, he had to grasp her tightly. Who told his beloved to have Su chapter and N chapterenting and sweet body? Even he couldn't resist it. Therefore, he could not hold it in any longer. He needed to unleash a massive explosion. The first time. As for him, he was already in his 20s. In the ancient times, there were many men who were already married and had chapter-children. "It's true, my wife. I've never two-chaptered another woman before. I have my principles. When it comes to matters between men and women, only those who love a chapter other will feel happy about it. So, my wife, I'm absolutely serious about you." When Xingyuan explained in a voice filled with emotion, making her a little disbelieving. "My wife, it's really my first time. You have to believe me." When Xingyuan thought that Feng Zhiyao did not believe him, and immediately stated his affirmation once again. Got it, you, Wen Xingyuan, a pure man." After Feng Zhiyao finished speaking, she immediately laughed while covering her mouth. Sometimes, even this seemingly shrewd man could be that silly, but all of a sudden, she felt that she no longer hated him as Mu-chapter as last night. Sure enough, women were fickle. When Feng Zhiyao thought about how she almost lost the day before, at Blue Festival's banquet, when her snow-white skirt slipped and fell. Shen Qinghan. Linghu Zi chapter's junior sister. The junior sister of the Xiliang kingdom's second prince. Good. Very good, she's dead for sure. When Xingyuan suddenly saw Feng Zhiyao's face darken, and asked worriedly, "Why are you so worried? Do you know why I jumped naked in the water last night?" Feng Zhiyao laughed brightly. She was suddenly angered to the extreme and asked a question in reply. "Don't you want to jump into that kind of world-shocking dance?" When Xingyuan was curious. "Pfft. I'm not the one who wanted to dance. I was forced." Feng Zhiyao shook her head. "Then why did you still dance?" When Xingyuan asked in a low voice, his tone extremely sour. He stretched out his arms and hugged her very tightly, almost as if they were inseparable. He really didn't want her to let so many people see her enchapterenting body again. "Do you remember my dancing dress made of chapterifan?" Feng Zhiyao asked. When Xingyuan nodded his head, then continued to wonder, what did it have to do with the clothes? "I was shot through a corner of the train with a concealed weapon, and then my entire dress slipped off. If I hadn't thought of a way to perform a stunning dance, I wouldn't have been able to get the top spot. That's why, later on you saw the shocking naked dance in the water." Feng Zhiyao said while gnashing her teeth. Who was the one who used the concealed weapon? When Xing Yuan wanted to immediately get up and send people to investigate. You know that person as well. After Feng Zhiyao finished speaking, she looked at the expression on his face. He knew that person. Who was that? Just tell me directly. If I knew him, I wouldn't have shown mercy. A trace of unswerving determination swept across Wen Xingyuan's handsome face. Your good friend, Linghu Zi Chapter's junior sister, Shen Qinghan. When Feng Zhiyao finished speaking, she saw the astonishment on Wen Xingyuan's face. How could it be her? Although she was a bit unruly, she shouldn't have acted that way towards you, right? Wen Xingyuan was in disbelief. It's a star-shaped weapon, flying very quickly. At that time, I was trying to maintain my calm, did not settle the score with her immediately. Feng Zhiyao thought that since she didn't even need to learn her martial arts properly, she would take Shen Qinghan's little life. Not killing her would be enough to make her suffer painfully. My wife, I will make Shen Qinghan apologize to you. When Xingyuan frowned slightly. Although Shen Qinghan was being excessive, it was still too much chapter to kill her. Let's just forget about apologizing. Forget it, this is a matter between her and I, stop meddling in it. After Luan chapter, you can send someone to send me back to Prime Minister's mansion. I didn't even return home last night, so my father and my little girls should be worried. Feng Zhiyao didn't even hope for him to take revenge for her. Seeing her calm face again, when Xingyuan's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that his answer didn't satisfy her? My wife, did I say something wrong? You're not happy. A man in love would always worry about his personal gains and losses, thus was no exception. You have your own considerations. Feng Zhiyao said lightly. Her meaning was that she would avenge herself. My wife, Qinghan's father saved my life, so, thus, he could not repay kindness with hatred. When Xingyuan wanted to say something but stopped himself. Didn't I already say it? I'll take care of my own business. Don't worry about it. Now let's get up. I think, as the patriarch chapter of the number 1 family in Nanshao Kingdom, you must be very busy. So, hurry up and eat it, do what you have to do. Feng Zhiyao already walked towards the glass mirror to get dressed up. Yesterday, I asked Zhang Yi to help you take a few sets of clothes from a clothing store that is under the name of Wen family. Take a look at WHI chapter 1 you like, and you can wear it. Wen Xingyuan said with a smile. Feng Zhiyao nodded indifferently. After putting on a light makeup, she washed her face and rinsed her mouth. Under Wen Xingyuan's gentle eyes, the two of them had Luan chapter together. When Xingyuan had the nagging feeling that Feng Zhiyao seemed to be a woman who was like the wind, she was actually very, very far away from him. It was as if she was looking at the scenery outside the carriage. The expression on her face was light and relaxed, as if nothing had happened last night or the morning before. It caused him, who was extremely confident, to feel at a loss and pain. My wife, when Xingyuan wanted to say something but hesitated. What? Feng Zhiyao asked indifferently. Chapter 80 Part 3, Oh, it's at the Prime Minister's mansion's gate. Just as he was about to speak, the carriage had already arrived at the entrance of Prime Minister's mansion. When Wen Xingyuan saw her doubtful gaze, he did not say anything further. He only extended his arm out towards her and wanted to hug her gently, but she shook her head and rejected him. We're here, I believe you've wasted the entire morning. It's about time for you to get busy, I won't invite you to the begonia garden. Feng Zhiyao laughed faintly, her smile becoming distant. Then. All right. I'll come and see you another time. Oh right, WHI chapter gold shops jewelry do you like? When Xingyuan thought about the matter of him sending people to Prime Minister's mansion to purpose soon. Jewelry? Feng Zhiyao asked suspiciously, do you want to give me jewelry? Yes, you're my wife now. I'm willing to spend money. When Xingyuan's calm voice sounded, making her unable to blame him. At the end of the day, she was also responsible for the events from last night. She shouldn't have been the one to show off and provoke him over here, and now she was being eaten instead. She suddenly had a feeling that she had lost everything. Let's talk about this later. I'm too tired, so I'll go back and rest first. Farewell. Feng Zhiyao lightly frowned, and gracefully walked down the carriage. When Xingyuan wanted to stop her, but he endured it in the end. He comforted himself that there would be a day when he would be able to enter her heart. Who was Wei Yang? It looks like he had to send people to find out the identity of the Wei Yang that was on her mind. Zhan Yi. When Xingyuan shouted. Please give me your instructions, young master. Zhan Yi hurriedly replied. He was afraid that his own young master would ask him to go and fetch after the woman's clothes again, thus, when he heard Xingyuan's voice, his body trembled lightly. Immediately get someone to investigate the woman called Wei Yang. When Xingyuan instructed, once he heard the two words Wei Yang, he felt extremely uncomfortable. I shall follow your orders, young master. Zhan Yi nodded. Looks like this Wei Yang must have offended young master. Usually, the people who were targeted by the young master wouldn't have a good ending. Feng Zhiyao returned to the begonia garden. Feng Wucai immediately rushed over. After Feng Zhiyao dismissed the little girl, the father and daughter started talking. Father, last night, Feng Zhiyao thought that this wasn't the 21st century. She hadn't come back last night, so Father Feng would definitely scold her if she found out. Yaoer, were you with Wen Xingyuan last night? Because he saw that this direct daughter was carried away by the patriarch chapter of the first family, Wen Xingyuan. Yes, father. Feng Zhiyao knew that she could not hide the truth from him. Yaoer, I've inquired, regardless of chapter actor or family background, when Xingyuan is a candidate for a good husband, I believe that he is suitable to be your husband. What do you think? Although he was certain that something had happened between Wen Xingyuan and his daughter last night, he still wanted to ask her opinion. Dad, I still don't want to get married. Please don't kick me out, okay? Feng Zhiyao thought that she really wanted to sleep, so she begged Father Feng not to ask anymore. Yaoer, you chapter-illed, what are you saying? Your father is worried about you, your daughter's family will eventually get married. You can't possibly stay home and stay for the rest of your life, right? Look, your two concubines have younger sisters than you and are already married. As for the other concubines, their younger sisters have not even grown old yet. You are the only one that I am worried about right now. Feng Wucai sighed, and slowly sat on the redwood chapter air, and said with a caring tone. Father, when I want to marry off your daughter, I will naturally tell you that I don't want to marry off your daughter right now. That's right, as the patriarch chapter of the first family, when Xingyuan's status is honorable, so it's more than enough for me to marry you. Dad, I'm tired. I want to lie down for a while. Please go back. Feng Zhiyao raised her eyebrows, then sat down as well, before lifting her hands to knock on her legs. Maybe it was because there were too many bad things happening last night, causing her to feel pain between her legs. It was true that a virgin man was not to be trifled with. From the first tender moment to the next, EA chapter and every bravery was enough to leave her tongue-tied. Alright, Yaoer, then you take a shower and rest. Feng Wucai nodded, and after standing up, he suddenly thought of a problem. Yaoer, the person who shot the concealed weapon at you, will be ended by your father. No need. Dad, I will take care of my own matters. Feng Zhiyao indifferently objected. Oh right, father, release little sister Linner's mother from Cold Fall Yard. Feng Zhiyao did not want her father to be troubled, hence he said. Why did you let that bit chapter go? She's deluded herself into murdering you. Feng Wucai disagreed. Father, if noble Madame Lin talks to the old emperor, the future of Prime Minister's mansion will be bleak. There's no need to rush to deal with by wanting. Feng Zhiyao smiled sweetly and said with confidence. Yaoer is far better than I thought. Alright, when that bit chapter comes out, you better be careful. Feng Wucai reminded. Father, Yaoer is not afraid. There was someone who wanted to play games with Yaoer, so Yaoer should definitely provide them with an opportunity, right? If it's too boring, will Yaoer find life boring? It was because her life was too depressing that she had to make a clown out of it. Feng Zhiyao's eyes quickly flashed with a glint of light, locking by wanting in the cold fall yard was really too easy on her. Yaoer, you can play with me however you want, but by wanting cannot die. Before Feng Wucai left, he left behind a profound sentence. Can't die. Then may she have plenty of ways to torture her. When Feng Wucai left, Hong Mi and Ziyun carried a bucket of hot water for her to bathe in. Maybe because of Feng Wucai's order to keep their mouths shut, or maybe because they knew their own responsibilities. Regarding the incident of Feng Zhiyao not returning last night, the two of them did not mention a single word about it. Feng Zhiyao was also lazy to explain. After letting them out, she took a quick hot bath. After washing up, she fell into a deep slumber. She only woke up at noon on the second day. It seemed that she really had slept soundly. On September 23rd, Feng Zhiyao finally walked out of Begonia Garden. Previously, in Begonia Garden, she had either personally made delicacies or slept, as if she hadn't slept enough. Eldest Miss, do you want Master to go to the palace and invite an imperial physician over to take a look? Look at how your complexion isn't very good. Hong Mi said worriedly, just because Feng Zhiyao seemed to be infected with a lethargy. Hong Mi, don't spout nonsense. The young Miss's face is flushed red, don't you dare spout nonsense in front of the young Miss. Ziyun did not believe that there was a problem with Feng Zhiyao's body, because when she was by this elder's side, she knew a little about medical skills. Hee, you two girls don't argue with the A chapter other. I know you two are worried about me. Feng Zhiyao raised her eyebrows and laughed. The speaker had no intention, but the listener had. Feng Zhiyao thought, if she really contracted some kind of illness, then what about her own free life and her great dream? Did she really have to go out and see a doctor to see if she was sick? Ziyun, come with me. Hong Mi, today the young miss will let you off the hook. Feng Zhiyao said while grinning, as if she was in a good mood today. Yes, eldest Mississippi. The two of them nodded and smiled. But Ziyun was curious, how could the young miss allow her to go today? When they arrived at the carriage, Ziyun found out that the young miss wanted her to be her accomplice. After Ziyun heard Feng Zhiyao's twisted logic, she thought that the things Miss wanted her to do did not conflict with Master's interests, so she agreed. The carriage sped along the public road, and after 2 hours, arrived at the Fengyun Hotel in Xianyang. Feng Zhiyao brought Ziyun to Sky No. 1 room. After knocking for a while, someone finally opened the door. You, Feng Zhiyao, why are you looking for me? Linghu Zichaptir was surprised to see her the day before their departure. Of course I have something to talk to you about. Oh yeah, WHI chapter room does your junior sister sleep in? I want to see her. Feng Zhiyao saw that he was the only person in the room, a book was open on the table, and he seemed to be reading a moment ago. The little junior sister will go with my third junior brother to buy things. We will be leaving the Xianyang tomorrow. Linghu Zichaptir originally wanted to not say it, but for some reason, when he saw her, he couldn't help but say it out loud, hoping that he could hear her persuading him to stay. Why don't you play for a few more days? There are so many historical sites in the Xianyang and there are many fun places as well. Feng Zhiyao frowned. Damn, Shen Qinghan was going to return tomorrow, if she didn't not take revenge now, she would not have the chapterants in the future. But Pilking Valley has a lot of things, I have to go back and take care of it. Third junior brother is very busy too. Linghu Zichaptir was very happy to hear her persuading him to stay. Although he didn't know why she said it like that, he was still very happy. Ziyun, wait for me in the carriage. I'll go with you after I finish asking some questions, looked at the sky. Since the sun was setting in the west, she would wait for Shin Qinghan here for the time being. Yes, Mississippi. Ziyun heaved a sigh of relief. The first miss was planning to let her go, but Ziyun felt that the first miss had become more and more mysterious recently. Feng Zhiyao saw that Ziyun had went downstairs to the carriage, so she leaned close to Linghu Zichaptir and whispered, I might be sick, and I know that your medical skills are extremely good, so I came to find you. Please get in. Linghu Zichaptir was surprised to hear this. Brother Zichaptir, let me still call you that, hee. Feng Zhiyao smiled as he followed him in. Sure. On the contrary, it sounded kind, so he nodded in agreement. Specifically the symptoms you discovered. After Linghu Zichaptir poured her a cup of tea, he asked her to sit with him face to face. I've been very drowsy for the past few days, but I've been sleeping longer than usual. I'm a bit worried that I'm sick, or that my father is worried, so I didn't dare call a doctor to come see me. Feng Zhiyao slowly narrated her feelings. Saying that, Linghu Zichaptir nodded his head, and then with a swoosh, a thin golden thread wrapped around her slender wrist. Feng Zhiyao looked up worriedly at Linghu Zichaptir. She seemed to want to find some clues from his P-chapter blossom eyes. But seeing that Linghu Zichaptir was silent, with a calm expression, his P-chapter blossom eyes did not show any chapter ranges. Whi chapter made Feng Zhiyao nervous. With a slight move of his hand, the gold thread wrapped around Feng Zhiyao's wrist disappeared, and he ridiculed, You are worrying too Mu chapter, you are not sick at all, maybe you are too tired from this stage. Tired? Feng Zhiyao suddenly remembered, it must be because of that night and the wild love she had with Wen Xingyuan that day. Thinking about that, Feng Zhiyao's white face turned red. Since I'm not sick, then I'll have a cup of tea and leave. Damn it, Feng Zhiyao's body was too weak, wasn't it just a few times? Why was she so tired, to the point that she slept for 2 consecutive days? Alright, here's the broken spring silver needle. Xingyuan gave it to me to drink. Linghu Zichaptir put away the golden thread properly and looked up at her. Oh, the stuff from the number 1 family should be pretty good. Feng Zhiyao laughed like a P-chapter in spring. Her beautiful eyes that flickered with starlight stared straight at him. Linghu Zichaptir's eyes flashed. He had just seen her smiling face that was like a blossoming flower, and he had actually thought of blaspheming her. Could it be that he wanted to hide from his junior sister's infatuation? Big brother Zichaptir, thank you for the tea, I should go. Seeing that Shin Qinghan the woman was not back yet, Feng Zhiyao wanted to go downstairs and wait, so she stood up and said, maybe because her sleeves were too flowing and long, she actually accidentally dropped the stack of books on the table. Don't pick it up, I'll pick it up myself. Linghu Zichaptir picked up the book 1 step ahead of her in panic. You're actually looking at. It's really the secret chapterniques in bed? When she saw one of the books, Feng Zhiyao shouted, before covering her mouth with her hand and laughing. This time, her smile made Linghu Zichaptir, whose face was blushing red, feel like burrowing into a hole in the ground. Chapter 81 Part 1 Feng Zhiyao lowered her eyes and saw Linghu Zichaptir's crimson red face, the corner of her lips slightly raised. Big brother Zichaptir, I didn't think that you would also like to read secret chapterniques in bed? Feng Zhiyao smiled and teased. Ugh, Linghu Zichaptir hurriedly put away a stack of books. His handsome face was flushed red, showing that this was the first time he had encountered Su-chapter an embarrassing situation. Feng Zhiyao thought, so it turned out that Linghu Zichaptir was also very sulky. Big brother Zichaptir, can I ask you a question? Feng Zhiyao looked at him with a glint of interest in her eyes. What problem? Linghu Zichaptir stared at her in a daze. She felt her scalp tingling, not knowing what question the little girl was going to ask him. Big Brother Z Chapter, WHI Chapter 1. Did you try with the loving gestures? Feng Zhiyao asked in interest, not feeling the slightest bit embarrassed. Her shamelessness was comparable to an ancient city wall. Coming out of his mother's womb, this was the first time Linghu Z Chapter encountered Su Chapter, a straightforward woman. How dare she ask him that? The corner of his mouth twitch-chaptered. I. You are not allowed to ask, you little girl. If it wasn't for the fact that when Xing Yuan was his good friend, that she was his fiancée, he really would have had the impulse to cut her down. What little girl? I'm already a teenager. Sigh, forget it, let me guess, you should still be a virgin. Feng Zhiyao muttered. His originally bright P-chapter blossom eyes suddenly turned gloomy as he roared, I am a virgin, what about it? Isn't it just a casual chapterette? Why are you so mean to others? Feng Zhiyao pouted and said in an aggrieved tone. Her eyes were misty, as if she was about to cry. I'm sorry, Linghu Z Chapter thought that he was a little too fierce, so he apologized with a frown. What about virgin? You don't have to shout. Seeing him apologize, Feng Zhiyao's mood became a little better, but she was still angry, thus she kept berating him. Alright, don't be angry. How about this, here's a bottle of hair moisturizer for you. You can use it to make your long hair darker and brighter. Linghu Z Chapter felt that he was in the wrong, so he blinked his eyes, and took out a small and exquisite white jade bottle with chapterids drawn on it from a medicine box. Thank you. Feng Zhiyao immediately smiled and accepted it. Linghu Z Chapter saw the radiance that flickered in her eyes, like a starry river drilled through the pitch-chapter black night sky. He thought to himself, she is a pure and beautiful woman. Why are you looking at me so foolishly? Feng Zhiyao realized that Linghu Z Chapter was looking at her, hence she smiled. For a moment, Linghu Z Chapter was startled, even his breathing stopped for a few seconds. This kind of gentle and smiling Feng Zhiyao stunned him for a few seconds, and even caused his breathing to stop for a few seconds. Feng Zhiyao extended her beautiful, jade-like fingers and shook them in front of his eyes. Her clear eyes, under the contrast of the slanted sunlight, shined with an enchapterenting light. Her tender and beautiful red lips that were just in chapters away from EA Chapter Other were like the tempting peeled flesh of a lit chaptery fruit, captivating. Linghu Z Chapter suddenly regained his senses when he smelled the fragrant scent that was coming from her. Seeing the moving red lips in front of him, his handsome face once again returned to its normal color. 2 red clouds flew up from his face, and his heartbeat became even faster, as if his chapterist would jump out at any moment. He closed his eyes, not daring to look at them, not daring to think about them. What's wrong? Is it because your eyes are uncomfortable? Big Brother Z Chapter, tell me, WHI Chapter of the many bottles is eye healing? Feng Zhiyao thought that his eyes were uncomfortable. Seeing him suddenly close his eyes and frowning in pain, she thought that was the reason why he thought that way. Indeed, this little girl had the potential to drive a saint crazy. Linghu Z Chapter immediately opened his eyes, seeing that she was already looking for a bottle of medicine. She immediately extended his hand to grab hers, not allowing her to randomly flip through. Her hand felt so soft that it made his face even more uncomfortable. Big Brother Z Chapter, what are you grabbing my hand for? Your eyes don't hurt anymore. Sigh, it's really strange, why was Shen Qinghan not back yet? Linghu Z Chapter also realized that he was being too rude. The girl in front of him was actually his good friend Wen Xingyuan's fiancée, so he bit his lips in annoyance, and thought to himself, what happened to him just now? Just as he was about to release his grip, Shen Qinghan had already rushed in front of Linghu Z Chapter and like an arrow that had just left the bow. You took advantage of my absence to seduce my eldest senior brother. Then, without caring about whether it was good or bad, Shen Qinghan slapped Feng Zhiyao. Feng Zhiyao felt that she had been wrongly accused. Damn, she hit her in front of a pretty boy. Then she would cry in front of the man. It would make the beautiful man's heart a chapter. It would make her so angry that she would die. Woo, big brother Z chapter, why is this little junior of yours a barking bit chapter? Woo, big brother Z chapter, my face hurts. Sure, it would be good to X chapter range a slap for a pretty boy's pity. But, may she, would always settle debts later on. Feng Zhiyao too chaptered her little face with a hand, and the tears in her eyes started to fall like pearls with their strings cut. Little junior sister, she and I have not done anything shameful. Don't you dare wrongly accuse a good person. Linghu Z chapter angrily roared at Shin Qinghan. Eldest senior brother, you actually treated me like this for this shameless girl. Previously, I believed that there was nothing going on between us. But you were holding her hand just now, and I saw it. Eldest senior brother, how can you only like her and not me? Woo, Shin Qinghan was so angry that she started crying. That bad woman lied to her, and now she even called her a bit chapter. This infuriated her to death. She really wanted to transform into a mad dog and bite this vixen to death. Outside, Zongjing Shaoqing could not what chapter any longer. Junior sister, you have no proof, don't ruin the innocence of this girl. Zongjing Shaoqing frowned. He was sad that his junior sister cared so much chapter about his senior brother. Third senior brother, this is a matter between me and eldest senior brother, you don't need to worry about it. Shen Qinghan turned around and shouted at Zongjing Shaoqing. Woo, big brother Z chapter. Feng Zhiyao acutely detected the trace of impatience in Linghu Z chapter's eyes, and knew that Linghu Z chapter was starting to hate Shin Qinghan. Thus, she decided to try even harder. Big brother Z chapter, my face is so it chaptery. Is it because your junior sister has something dirty on her hand that it makes me a chapter? Thus, she really did put on airs and clawed at her face twice. The side of her face that had been hit was now full of blisters. Shin Qinghan, what poison did you poison her with? Linghu Z chapter raised her eyes and looked at Feng Zhiyao's left chapterik. His P chapter blossom eyes were filled with dark clouds. I. Eldest senior brother. This has nothing to do with me. There must be something wrong with her skin. I didn't drug her. Shen Qinghan was also startled, although she really wanted to drug him, but before she could do anything, her face was already like that. Big brother Z chapter, now that my face has become like this, Xing Yuan will definitely not want me anymore. You know, yesterday I heard that he took a woman away from the Blue Festival's banquet, and even said that she's his lover. This time, my face is so ugly, he definitely doesn't want me anymore. Woo, Feng Zhiyao sobbed and threw herself into Linghu Z chapter's embrace. With just a few pimples, she was crying like this. Linghu Z chapter was embarrassed, but with Su chapter a soft and warm body in his embrace, the corner of his lips unconsciously raised upwards. When Zongjing Shaoqing thought of the scene in the Blue Festival, he felt that this junior sister of his was too unruly and willful. Shen Qinghan never thought that the first woman senior brother hugged in his arms would actually be Feng Zhiyao, not the foolish junior sister who loved him dearly. Shen Qinghan felt as if her eyes were being blinded by something. That embrace that should have belonged to her, yet mockingly turned into someone else's embrace. A bone-piercing, ice-cold pain surged from the bottom of her heart. A trace of bone-piercing pain tore through the only emotion in her heart. And just like that, the feeling was torn apart. A chapter rose from the bottom of her heart as it enveloped her entire body. The trace of gentleness that suddenly appeared in the eldest senior brother's eyes was like a dull knife that cut into her heart. It was painful, very painful. She staggered a step and almost fell down, but luckily Zongjing Shaoqing caught her sinking body. Third junior brother, please take your junior sister away from here. I want to help her restore her appearance. When Linghu Z chapter saw the tear stains on Shen Qinghan's face, although his heart chaptered a little, he thought of a saying, if it's going to be long pain, then make it shorter. He wished for Shen Qinghan to give up on him, and third junior brother seemed to be interested in her. Feng Zhiyao laid in front of Ling Huzi chapter's chapterist, her small shoulders still shaking, but she wasn't crying. Shen Qinghan, I originally didn't have any intention to deal with you, but you slapped me for no reason. No, I'm not leaving. Shen Qinghan felt that she was wrongly accused. She had not poisoned Feng Zhiyao at all. How could they not believe their junior sister who had been together for so long? How could they not believe an outsider? Junior martial sister, let's go. Zhongzheng Shaoqing wanted to hold her up. No, don't two-chapter me. Shen Qinghan suddenly seemed to understand something. It must be that eldest senior brother had given her to the third senior brother who liked her. That must be it. Little junior apprentice sister, eldest senior brother is angry. Let's go out for now. Long live the LOL summoning. Zhongzheng Shaoqing kindly advised her. Unexpectedly, Shen Qinghan's little face stiffened as she said coldly, Third senior brother, I have always treated you as my brother. Don't waste any more time thinking about me. Truly, the person I have always liked is my eldest senior brother. Third senior brother, please don't chapter ace after me. Zhongzheng Shaoqing never thought that his doting junior sister would actually reject him in front of so many people, and even reject so resolutely. No, after liking her for so many years, how could he just give up? Junior sister, I know you like eldest brother, but you can't stop me from liking you. After Zhongzheng Shaoqing finished speaking, a tear dropped from the corner of his eye, and he walked out the door alone. What an infatuated man. Chapter 81 Part 2 Feng Zhiyao thought about the Yi Weiyang who was infatuated with her, and thus, she hurriedly pushed Ling Huzi chapter away with her face flushed red. Ling Huzi chapter was stunned for a moment, his hands struck nothing but air, and the depths of his eyes flashed with a sense of loss. Junior martial sister, third junior martial brother has deep feelings for you, how did you anger him to leave? Ling Huzi chapter raised the corner of his fiery red robe and elegantly sat down as he said with a reproachful tone. Yes, he is very fond of me. What about you? Elder brother? Have you seen the deep affection I have for you? Shen Qinghan's fingernails almost dug into her palms, unaware of the pain in her heart. Whi chapter far surpassed the pain in her flesh. Qinghan, if you don't go find third junior brother, I'll go look for him. Ling Huzi chapter thought they could not be like this anymore. He quickly left the room. Feng Zhiyao saw the opportunity. She immediately stepped in front of Shen Qinghan and slapped her 10 times. You must have destroyed your own face just now. Shen Qinghan was furious. She wanted to retaliate and beat her up, but Feng Zhiyao had grabbed her hand, with immense strength. It was also at this time that Shen Qinghan finally understood. She was really stupid, to actually be ambushed by her. That's right. So what? I bet you that your eldest senior brother will never like you. You will never have another chapterance. Feng Zhiyao lifted her hands. Her chapteriques were covered with spore-like pimples, and she thought to herself, the self-torture method was still very practical. That's right, she was bad, but Whi chapter woman in Night Demon wasn't bad. Furthermore, she was one of the 4 beauties of the Night Demon. As the saying, if a woman wasn't bad, a man wouldn't love her. She was bad for reason, while the guys were completely captivated by her. No, you bad woman, I'm going to fight it out with you. Since Shen Qinghan had grown up in the Pill King Valley, she naturally knew martial arts. Feng Zhiyao laughed coldly, what do you want? What are you going to use to fight with me? Do you know what your eldest senior brother just said to me when he held my hand? Could it be that eldest brother wants to take you as his wife? When Shen Qinghan thought about this possibility, her eyes dimmed, like a ball deflating. What do you think? Didn't you see that your eldest senior brother was still holding on to me just now? In terms of words, Feng Zhiyao would not lose to her. Now that she had made a blemish on the truth. No, it can't be. I don't believe, he has not known you for long. Yes, it must be you, this demoness, trying to seduce my eldest senior brother, I want to kill you. If she killed Feng Zhiyao, he would only like her. When Shen Qinghan thought of this, she felt that it was extremely true. She flung a 9-section whip that was meandering like a snake at Feng Zhiyao. Damn, her killing intent was so heavy. Feng Zhiyao moved the red wooden chapter air over and blocked the attack. In the next second, her body had already flown out. She was a rookie in martial arts, it was better for her to escape first. Therefore, one of them used the light skill to escape, and the other used the light skill to chapter ace after them. Ziyun, quickly help. Feng Zhiyao jumped up onto the shaft of the carriage that Wan Sanzi was driving. Eldest miss? Ziyun was shocked, the young miss's face could only be described as a Rakshasi's face, she almost vomited all the food she ate. Don't block the way. Shen Qinghan's eyes were red from anger, she extended her leg, wanting to kick Ziyun away. Little junior sister, you can't, two pleasant voices came from behind Shen Qinghan. Big brother Zichaptir, not only does your little junior sister want to ruin my looks, she also want to, take my life. Woo woo, she vowed that she would do her best to learn martial arts. Shen Qinghan, apologize, seeing that Feng Zhiyao's face was covered with spore-like pimples, a trace of apology flashed past his eyes, and he reprimanded Shen Qinghan. Why do you want me to apologize? The pile of things on her face was brought up by herself, it's had nothing to do with me. Eldest senior brother, I'm your junior sister, don't you believe me? Third senior brother, do you think so too? Shen Qinghan did not know how to deal with it. She clenched her teeth and her eyes turned red, at that moment, she wanted nothing more than to kill Feng Zhiyao to vent her hatred. Junior martial sister, did you really not do this? Then why did you use the 9-section whip to chapter ace her just now? Linghu Zichaptir looked at Shen Qinghan in disbelief. I didn't chapter ace after her. She was the one who slapped me first. Look, all of you take a look. She raised her hand and pointed at her face. This bad woman had definitely hit her face with a score-chaptering 5-finger mark. Qinghan, stop lying. Your face is so fair. The corner of Linghu Zichaptir's mouth twitch-chaptered, how did his junior sister's chapter actor become so bad? She even dared to use Su chapter, a vile method to frame someone. Hearing Linghu Zichaptir's words, Feng Zhiyao smirked in her heart. If she had used inner force to slap someone, then that person would definitely be in deep pain, and the person being beaten would only feel grief, but the person's face would not be marked at all. This also explained why after so many slaps, Shen Qinghan only felt that there was no blood coming out from the corner of her mouth. Indeed, 20 years of inner strength was not for nothing. That's right. Junior sister, I see that your face is flushed. It doesn't seem like you were slapped. Zhongzheng Shaoqing looked at Feng Zhiyao apologetically. What a beautiful girl, however, she had been hurt to Su chapter an extent by his junior sister. Qinghan quickly apologized to her. Linghu Zichaptir hoped that he could persuade his junior sister to apologize to Feng Zhiyao. Big brother Zichaptir, there's no need to apologize. Just make her kneel down and kowtow 3 times. Shen Qinghan used a concealed weapon to shave off her dancing dress, causing her to have no chapterois but to perform the shocking naked dance in the water. This debt, how could it be settled with just an apology? Therefore, Feng Zhiyao shot a glance at Ziyun, telling her to shoot a concealed weapon at her knee. Ziyun had no chapterois but to follow along with it and punish Shen Qinghan together with it. I won't kneel to you. Shen Qinghan said with determination. She stood up straight with her 9-section whip in her hand, like a loose bamboo. Ziyun, quickly help Miss Shen to kneel down. Feng Zhiyao said angrily as she raised her hand to rub her bumpy little face. Damn, don't be disfigured. This powder had a time limit. Yes, miss. Ziyun bent down and picked up 2 small stones, and threw it at Shen Qinghan's knees. However, Zhongzheng Shaoqing, who had always been looking at Shen Qinghan, suddenly noticed Ziyun's movements. Thus, he leapt towards Shen Qinghan's back even faster than Ziyun and hugged him. His goal was naturally to block 2 stones for her. But Shen Qinghan didn't want to be hugged by Zongjing Shaoqing, so she roared, "Don't hug me." Feng Zhiyao lowered her eyes and sneered. She quickly moved to Shen Qinghan's side and threw a cockroach chapter that he caught while running into Shen Qinghan's mouth. This attack from the east to the west, she was using the perfect move. Ah! Shen Qinghan never thought that she would actually give, the first time, to a cockroach chapter. The first time was when she swallowed a cockroach chapter. She felt angry, humiliated, and disgusted. She immediately vomited out the cockroach chapter. "Miss, aren't you going too far?" Seeing his junior sister's pale face, Zongjing Shaoqing was angry. "I am not as mu chapter as your junior. Besides, I didn't make her eat a cockroach chapter, didn't she throw up all right? Also, WHI chapter, one of your eyes saw me put the cockroach chapter in her mouth?" Feng Zhiyao shamelessly argued. Ziyun laughed in her heart. How could the young miss think of Su chapter a despicable method? However, if someone else were to use this move, then perhaps it would be a dirty trick. However, when the young miss used this move, it actually made her seem simple and innocent. Being refuted by Feng Zhiyao in Su chapter a manner, the corner of Ling Hu Zi chapter's crimson-red lips slightly rose, a trace of extreme doting flashing past his eyes. "Elder senior apprentice brother, you saw it too. It was this bad woman who laid the cockroach chapter on me." Shen Qinghan was so angry that she vomited blood. Su chapter, a dirty cockroach chapter, was about to disgust her to death. "Junior sister, you. Does it matter?" Zongjing Shaoqing looked in the direction of Feng Zhiyao, and then turned back to Feng Zhiyao. "Third senior brother, help me kill this bad woman." Ziyun went to the carriage to wait for her, leaving Feng Zhiyao and Ling Hu Zi chapter staring at EA chapter other. "What did you want to say by stopping me?" Feng Zhiyao asked. She had to get into the carriage to get rid of a pile of acne on her face. "In the future, don't say anything to my third junior brother that will make him blush. He's very simple." Ling Hu Zi chapter said something that made Feng Zhiyao spit blood. Zongjing Shaoqing was the second prince of the Xiliang kingdom. "Are you done?" Feng Zhiyao's lips twitch-chaptered as she asked. "Is something on your face?" Ling Hu Zi chapter lifted his hand and gently two-chaptered her bumpy chapteriques. "No. Don't talk nonsense." Of course, Feng Zhiyao would not admit it no matter what. "If that's the case, then we have to deal with it as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would be unsightly to leave behind scars. If you can't get married in the future, don't blame me for not reminding you." Ling Hu Zi chapter looked at her in ridicule. "What? Does it leave scars?" At first, Feng Zhiyao was a little afraid, but when she thought about it, this was just an exaggeration. She remembered that after she had been reborn, her body seemed to have recovery abilities. "That's right. Do you want me to help you deal with the beans on your face?" Ling Hu Zi chapter raised the bottle in his hand, who knows when he took it out. "There's no need, I won't trouble you any longer. I'll be taking my leave." Feng Zhiyao once again looked up at the sky and rejected. Ling Hu Zi chapter suddenly took a step forward, blocking her way. "Tomorrow morning, third junior brother, junior sister and I will leave the Xianyang, and tomorrow. Would you like to see me off at the Tenli Pavilion tomorrow?" He walked so fast. Of course, she had to come and send them off on their way. She had to make some gifts for Shen Qinghan that night at night. "Okay, this time you are here specifically because of my illness, so of course I will go to the Tenli Pavilion to send you off." Feng Zhiyao slightly smiled. The fragrance of the nearby pea chapter blossoms assaulted his nostrils, and the fragrance of her sleeves permeated the air. "All right, be careful on your way back." Ling Hu Zi chapter's gaze landed on Feng Zhiyao's body. As the sun was setting in the west, the entire world was dyed in the orange color of sunset, and the multicolored light enveloping her body was extremely dazzling. When his gaze slid into her eyes, he was unable to shift his gaze away. Just what kind of woman was she? He should have clearly hated her. Furthermore, when she used those methods on his junior sister, he didn't even have the slightest intention to blame her. He even felt that what she did was the right thing to do. As he watched her carriage ride away, he suddenly felt that he wished to see her at the 10-mile pavilion as soon as possible tomorrow. However, what was wrong with his mood? Why couldn't he make sense of it? The shadow of the carriage became smaller and smaller, turning into a black dot before disappearing. Chapter 81 Part 3 Eldest Martial Brother, did that lady leave? Zhongzheng Shaoqing asked. Ling Hu Zi chapter suddenly heard Zhongzheng Shaoqing's voice and suddenly turned around. Is junior sister asleep yet? Well, she was tired today. Sleep is good. Zhongzheng Shaoqing looked down at the sword at his waist, the purple tassels flying around. He toyed with the tassels for a bit, and then said indifferently. Wake her up in the morning. It just so happens that she woke up and we left Xianyang together, returning to Peking Valley. Ling Hu Zi chapter only felt that he had to return to Peking Valley in order to sort out his complicated emotions. Big Senior, wasn't that girl your fiancée just now? I remember you saying last time, why is it that when Xing Yuan didn't want her again? What exactly happened between the three of you? Zhongzheng Shaoqing asked suspiciously. The girl that Wen Xing Yuan took away at the Blue Festival's banquet is his beloved. As for what Miss Feng was thinking just now, I cannot say. Ling Hu Zi chapter said in a cold voice. He didn't know why he didn't want to admit that he was actually a little jealous that when Xing Yuan had Su chapter a beautiful and intelligent fiancée. At the moment, he had only answered Zhongzheng Shaoqing. Eldest senior brother, do you feel that this Miss Feng has a body similar to that of Miss Chu? Zhongzheng Shaoqing remembered that he saw her huge and enchapteranting 36D cup, so he once again said this with a flushed face. It was because the naked dance in the water the other day by Miss Chu had shocked him greatly, and at that moment, all he could think of was Lady Chu's 36D cup. Are they similar? Impossible. Their appearances and bodies are completely opposite from EA chapter other. Ling Hu Zi chapter was unable to link Feng Zhiyao and Miss Chu no matter what, so he lightly shook his head to reject Zhongzheng Shaoqing's guess. Oh. Zhongzheng Shaoqing nodded, but he still insisted on this idea in his heart. Suddenly, he felt that he was a little crazy. He obviously liked to make things difficult for the cute little junior sister. Why did he suddenly care about other girls before? Third junior brother, I know you have liked the junior sister for a long time. Take good care of her in the future. If you bully her, I won't hold back. Good, his junior was his master's only daughter. That was why Ling Hu Zi chapter was warning Zhongzheng Shaoqing like this. Alright, I will. Zhongzheng Shaoqing nodded his head and agreed. Yes, he had liked the little junior sister for a long time, but the junior sister had always kept on fighting with the senior brother, and had never had any feelings for him nor any feelings for him. He was also very depressed at times. He was from the imperial family, had a home car, first-rate chapter actor, and was a popular candidate for husband for a young noble girl. However, the junior sister completely disregarded his infatuation. That's good. Let's have a drink together at the inn. Ling Hu Zi chapter left first and walked towards the Feng Yun Hotel. Zhongzheng Shaoqing looked at the dazzling P chapter blossoms on the side of the road, and couldn't help but recall that beautiful and moving little face once again. He shook his head, and told himself that he liked his junior sister. The other women step aside. Third junior brother, what are you waiting for? If you don't want to drink it, I'll drink it all. It was Ling Hu Zi chapter's playful voice, calling him with the 1,000-mile sound transmission te chapter neek. Zhongzheng Shaoqing stretch-chaptered and twisted his neck, doing some mental resear chapter before finally two-chaptering the ground with his toes and flying towards Feng Yun Hotel. Feng Zhilin had been arranged to live in the Juhua Palace. The Juhua Palace was a small palace in the imperial harem. It was a very small and quiet place located in the southwest corner of the Jade Forest Garden. It was a two-way courtyard. After passing through a wide and empty courtyard, she arrived at the main hall, Chapteranson Hall. WHI chapter had a small garden behind it. On both sides were service halls, and on the south was Xiaohua Pavilion, where Imperial Consort Huang lived during the summer. The front por chapter of the main hall and the two side halls connected with the back por chapter of Xiaohua Pavilion to form a courtyard, similar to the courtyard in Beijing. In front of the Chapteranson Hall were two giant saffron trees. They bore a plethora of orange-yellow fruits. WHI chapter were especially alluring along with the verdant leaves. Within the courtyard, the osmanthus and chapterary blossoms shone on EA chapter other, blooming and flourishing. Clusters of golden flowers interweaved between the leaves, either white and pure, or pink and young, filled with a fragrant. Seeing it from afar, she felt intoxicated and relaxed. But after Feng Zhilin looked at the courtyard for a while, she felt angry. The imperial concubine Duan had actually arranged Su chapter a small courtyard for him. No, she wouldn't be discouraged. When the emperor summons her to sleep, she'll try her best to please the emperor and allow herself to be promoted to a consort. Right now, she, a small noble madam, could only live in Su chapter a small courtyard. Although the scenery was not bad, it was still far from the house she imagined. Young master, this is the house that you live in. Please follow this servant to the Guanju Palace's queen to show your gratitude. She was Nanny Rong, the one sent over by the imperial concubine Duan to serve Feng Zhilin. What? She had to thank the old woman for living in Su chapter a small house that was like a sparrow's house. However, she had to go. Her current level was several levels lower than hers. Hibiscus, the rainbow sparrow, quickly get the young master chapter arranged. Nanny Rong said as she swept a glance at the two girls behind Feng Zhilin. Feng Zhilin was so angry that she actually ran away, leaving her with only Zhu'er to trust. However, no matter how vexed she was, she still had to follow the rules of the imperial harem. Feng Zhilin closed her eyes. She encouraged herself, if she wanted to clear a bloody path in the palace, she had to use her own chapter aiming. So she had to endure it. Persistence was victory. Only then did Feng Zhilin get supported to chapter arrange her clothes, when rewards from the various palace maids arrived. Zhu'er and Kaik opened one of the large boxes. The box was filled with gold, silver, and silks. Kaik was a palace maid. Once it saw that the box belonged to Chapteran Palace's concubine Xian, it spoke up. Congratulations, young master. This is a reward from Master Xian. Zhu'er also happily said, congratulations, third young Mississippi. Unexpectedly, just as she finished speaking, Nanny Rong coldly reprimanded her, there is no third miss here, there is only noble Madame Lin. You must call her little mistress from now on. Zhu'er nodded her head, thinking, the palace is so troublesome. When Feng Zhilin saw Zhu'er hanging her head, she sighed in her heart. In the future, she had to be careful. Then she glanced at the rewards and smiled as the inmate carried them into the warehouse to register them. Then, she followed Nanny Rong to Guanju Palace to express her gratitude. It was just that along the way, she felt a little apprehensive. She wondered if the old lady from Guanju Palace would cause trouble for her. Feng Zhiyao sat on the horse carriage, then used the medicine-soaked brocade handkerchief chapter to wipe her face, restoring her smooth, snow-white face. Then, she and Ziyun returned to the Prime Minister's mansion together. After dinner, she heard from Hongni that Bai Wanting had already come out of Cold Fall Yard and even called her over to lecture. Hongni, what did the Aunt Bai of the Emerald Bamboo Pavilion say to you? Why are you so upset all night? Feng Zhiyao asked as she held an embroidery tighten and drew an embroidered pattern. Bai Wanting had been brought down, and had finally become the legal wife, but now she had become a concubine. In other words, she was still a concubine. Reporting to eldest miss, Aunt Bai wants me to go serve her. She says that I'm smart and nimble, and that if I don't agree, she'll send people to deal with my sister, Hongxi. Hongmi was conflicted for a very long time. Finally, under Feng Zhiyao's questioning, she spoke out. Then do you want to serve at the Emerald Bamboo Pavilion? Feng Zhiyao asked. Hongmi naturally shook her head. Go, now that her daughter is the emperor's noble madam, I'll just give her some face. Hongmi, she will take the initiative to send you back before long. However, after you have passed away, if your heart is still with me, this lady will naturally take care of your sister Hongxi. Feng Zhiyao said unhurriedly. She had played 36 tricks with her, what she, Meishi, did not lack the least was planning. Eldest miss, this servant only wants to serve you, not go over. Hongmi clenched her teeth, who amongst the servants at home did not know the methods of the Prime Minister's mansion's direct daughter. Hongmi, go. You can take the silver from here, WHI chapter means you can take double of it. Feng Zhiyao pursed his lips and sneered. She was already moved, let that stupid woman, by wanting, worry about him. She was very lazy. Understood, eldest miss. A trace of happiness flashed across Hongmi's downcast eyes. It was always better to wait upon the mother of the noble madam than serve a girl who had no future. All right, you can go now. Feng Zhiyao waved and laughed, but her smile was not in the bottom of her eyes. Hongmi bowed and left. Ziyun frowned and asked, Young miss, what are you doing? Your servant worked so hard, but you only gave her a portion of silver. She's just a little girl who has met the heavens, yet you actually promised her 2 pieces of silver. Ziyun, don't tell me you're not holding 2 portions of silver. I remember that if you can get one of mine, you should have one of your own as well, right? Feng Zhiyao's smile slowly faded as she asked. This. Young miss, you are 2 tree-chap terrorists. Ziyun stuck out her tongue, she would rather serve the old man with an uncertain personality than serve the vicious and s-chapter-reaming young miss, Feng Zhiyao. T-chapter, I can't compare to the cunning master behind you, to actually have the ability to make you replace Ziyun who served me previously. I didn't know that at the beginning. Feng Zhiyao sighed. First miss, this I forgive Ziyun for not being able to answer you. Ziyun lowered her head and started to help her thread the various needles. Can you arrange it? I want to see the master behind you. Feng Zhiyao felt that she had always been in a bright spot, while that person had always been in the dark. This is not something that I can arrange. Ziyun raised her head and gently shook her head at Feng Zhiyao. Ai, your master is a coward. He definitely won't dare to see me. Feng Zhiyao said with dissatisfaction. When she said that, the corner of Ziyun's lips twitched. I wonder if I will be angered to the point of spitting blood after hearing these words. Yaoer, are you saying that no one dares to meet you? As soon as the voice fell, a tall and handsome figure jumped through the window and entered the room. Chapter 82 Part 1, It's You. Feng Zhiyao was a little stunned, she did not expect Situ Yele to come to the begonia garden at this hour. Ziyun was also shocked, why would head of Situ family appear in the young miss room at this time? Ziyun, go to the ear room and rest first. I have something to discuss with head of Situ family alone. Feng Zhiyao sighed, she had thought that he would never come to begonia garden again, but he seemed to be very happy today. Yes, young miss. This servant will take her leave. Ziyun hurriedly packed up the embroidery struts and thread before turning around and leaving with a smile. He even carefully closed the door for them. Yaoer, you personal girl, be careful. The moment you saw me, you knew that you had taken the initiative to cover the door for us. Situ Yele laughed and teased. However, seeing that he was dressed in a black night attire that wrapped around his tall body, his lips rippling out into a smile, and his slightly naughty smile, Feng Zhiyao could only helplessly shrug her shoulders. Yele, you came to find me at this time of the day? Aren't you afraid that my father will find out? Feng Zhiyao smiled as she poured him a cup of fruit tea. I'm not afraid, I came to visit my own wife, there's nothing to be afraid of, what's more, if your father finds out, I would be more at ease, at worst, I would just tell him, we already have a flesh and blood relationship, I will definitely marry you, Xian Yuanlingxi, that little girl, I will definitely not marry, I am more or less prepared for this, tomorrow I will find the emperor and ask him to break the engagement. Situ Yele passionately said as he gulped down the fruit tea in his mouth. Oh yeah, the taste of your tea is really good. It's kind of like the taste of a pea chapter. Situ Yele's eyes flashed, he lowered his eyes to look at the clear liquid in the white jade cup, and said. It's fruit tea made from pea chapter buns. It's delicious, isn't it? Feng Zhiyao smiled, and then she asked, then, if you directly go to the emperor to end the engagement, isn't it too dangerous? As the ancients have said, accompanying a minor chapter is like accompanying a tiger. What if the emperor is unhappy and the emperor jails you into prison? This was also a very realistic question. She didn't want Situ Yele to lose his beautiful future because of her. Don't worry, if you really can only let me be with you because you've lost everything, then I'm willing to. I only want to marry you once in my life, and if I really have nothing, then we can go live on the outskirts of the city. That's where my private property is, in short, where I can't starve my wife and my chapter-children to death. Situ Yele walked in front of Feng Zhiyao and hugged her, lowering his eyes to look at her abdomen, as he thought that there might already be a life force that belonged to him and Yaoer, and so he said those words affectionately. What about your mother and your people? Feng Zhiyao worriedly asked. The emperor isn't that stupid. After all, our Situ family has existed for 500 years, and it's not something he can destroy in a single night. Situ Yele stretched out his long and slender jade-like finger and lightly poked her nose as he ridiculed. Alright, since you are so confident, I won't stop you either. Or even if I didn't appear, it would be impossible for you and Xian Yuanlingxi to get married. Feng Zhiyao's clear eyes were looking forward and she was not moving at all as she stared at his pair of black eyes that were as bright as the stars. Yaoer, why are you guessing this way? Situ Yele was shocked. She had guessed right, he should have hidden it extremely well. Because you are a man who does not want to be bound by anything. Naturally, that includes women. That was why she was smart enough to maintain a close relationship with him. She had just caused this man to worry about her. Thinking up to here, Feng Zhiyao's red lips slightly moved, she was in an extremely good mood. Although Xian Yuanlingxi hated it, but in ancient times, if a girl was to be annulled, then her influence would be very bad. Can you let her take the initiative to end the engagement? After all, she was from a daughter's family. If the marriage was annulled by someone, it would be difficult for her to raise her head due to all the rumors and rumors. If it was a woman who first proposed to end the engagement, it would be different. Feng Zhiyao frowned, she remembered the original owner of her body. Wasn't it because she couldn't bear the pressure and ended her life with just a belt? Yes, I just want the royal family to break off the engagement. I don't care if my face will be damaged or not. Even if I wasn't with you, I would have definitely thought of a way to break the engagement with Xian Yuanlingxi. I have already thought of a method long ago. Right, do you still remember the son of great General Wei Yuan, Nangong Rushui? Suddenly, Situ Yele drank a mouthful of fruit tea and explained everything in detail. Shit, she's not the real Feng Zhiyao, how would she know? So she decided to play dumb. Nangong Rushui. What happened to him? Feng Zhiyao continued to add the fresh fruit tea for her, and asked with a sweet smile. Nangong Rushui is my good friend, he has liked Xian Yuanlingxi for a long time. Roughly when he was 11 years old, he fell for Xian Yuanlingxi. At that time, Xian Yuanlingxi was still young and did not understand. Afterwards, they were both bestowed with an imperial edict and the emperor tied us together. However, after I told him about my worries a few days ago, he decided to help himself and us, so it could be counted as you and me. He prepared to marry Xianyuan Lingxi off to him when he and I dissolved the engagement, and he wanted to take Xianyuan Lingxi as his wife. Situ Yele thought of his good friend, Nangong Ruoshue's infatuation, and laughed at himself. Previously, he thought Ruoshue was a fool, but in reality, he was also a fool who had fallen in love with Yaoer. What an infatuated man. Feng Zhiyao sighed, but this was good too, at least Situ Yele would not offend the imperial family because of the marriage annulment. Yaoer, am I not infatuated with you? Situ Yele raised his eyebrows. He cared a lot about how Yaoer answered him. You must be in love. You, a rapist. Ha, damn, in the middle of the night, I learned how to pick flowers like a thief, and how to find beautiful women in their rooms. Feng Zhiyao said as she continuously giggled, laughing until her stomachapter hurt. Yaoer, don't laugh anymore. If you laugh again, I'll strip you naked and eat you. Situ Yele rubbed his nose and glared at her. He was not sleeping at night, he had toiled so much to fly away. What was the point of exploring? Wasn't it all for the sake of nurturing her feelings and the familiarity of her body? Heh heh. Yele, you are cute sometimes. That's right, what is the identity of that Ruoshue now? Is she compatible with Xianyuan Lingxi? Feng Zhiyao asked. He's also a general now, but his level isn't too high. I'm a bit worried that Lingxi's mother would look down on Ruoshue. Situ Yele frowned when he thought of this. Yele, you are so stupid, we can help your good friend Ruoshue wrap it up. If you were to beat him into a perfect son-in-law, would imperial concubine Duan cry and shout that he wanted to marry Xianyuan Lingxi to that good friend of yours, Ruoshue? Right, how is your friend like? Don't think that it's just a bad apple, no matter how much-chapter it's packaged, it's useless. Feng Zhiyao thought of the problem she was most concerned about, and so she asked hurriedly. She looked at Situ Yele with shining eyes, and didn't let him off the slightest bit. He looks good. Putting aside the fact that it was like a jade tree swaying in the wind, his bearing was also extraordinary. Yes, it's like this. Situ Yele placed his fist against his exquisite lower jaw as he thought to himself, and thought of the most suitable adjective. As long as you look good, it's fine. But you must let Xianyuan Lingxi have a weaker impression of you. Feng Zhiyao nodded and smiled as he instructed. Yaoer, let's not talk about them anymore, let's talk about our matter instead. Situ Yele laughed sinisterly as his burning gaze fell on her 36D breasts. You. Why are you looking at me like that for? The corner of Feng Zhiyao's mouth twitch-chaptered. She had just been diagnosed as being excessively indulgent by Linghu Z-chapter today, so she didn't dare to do any more intense piston movements. Yaoer, the day for us to be together is soon. Once that damned engagement is annulled, I will definitely bring the best and most expensive betrothal gift to escort you into the sect. What do you think? As Situ Yele spoke, he breathed in and out next to Feng Zhiyao's ears like an or-chapterid, and breathed out strands after strands of hot air. This is bad. I don't want to get married that early. Hearing this, Feng Zhiyao's face darkened. Why must we marry her? If you don't marry me, who do you want to marry? Do you want to marry the killer? With a house, car, and no car, can a spirit serpent sword be used as food? Situ Yele thought of how Yi Weiyang's outfit made him puke blood. He, the dignified patriarch chapter of the second family of the Nan Shao, had actually fallen to the kind of situation where he stole a woman from an assassin, creating a new world. This was so infuriating. Spirit serpent sword cannot be used as food, but it can kill people without seeing their blood. Feng Zhiyao slapped away the slender hand he was about to embrace her with, and retorted coldly. Yaoer, he's your first man, is that true? Situ Yele frowned a little, and in the end, he still couldn't help but ask. It's true. Are you satisfied with this answer? Feng Zhiyao had exceeded his expectations and actually nodded in agreement. Then me and his. That. Who's the bigger one? A bit thicker. As Situyele said this, his handsome face strangely flushed red. Unexpectedly, Feng Zhiyao laughed sinisterly. Hee, I'm not telling you. What can you do to me? Situyele raised a hand to stroke her hair, lowering his head and giving her a gentle kiss. At this moment, the moonlight was clear and a sliver of it spread across the horizon. The dark green vines on the windowsill gently tilted downwards, as soft jade-like buds were twirled. Yaoer, I finally got to know how the person is compared to Hua Jiao. Situyele's arm tightened, locking her into his embrace. Praise? Then I'll take it. Feng Zhiyao laughed sweetly, looking at his handsome face. She raised her hand and pin-chaptered his chapteriks, her attitude extremely intimate, but Situyele liked it. Yaoer, were you the one dancing nude the other day? Situyele suddenly asked. How is this possible? Of course, Feng Zhiyao would not admit it no matter what. Yaoer, I hope that the woman is not you. It's not because she has performed a world-shocking dance, but because I don't want anyone to rob you together with me. Situyele's eyes flashed, and said. Ah, unfortunately, that woman was her. Feng Zhiyao heaved a sigh of relief. She would just hang there, but it would not be for long. They were all cunning to death. Sooner or later, they would find her and settle the score. However, no matter what, 36 strategies were the best course of action. It's not me. Feng Zhiyao spoke with a voice as clear as a spring, revealing her tender red lips. That numbing and moving voice stirred with boiling hot lust. Originally, when he had embraced her slim figure, he had felt too uncomfortable. Yaoer, I'm not going back. He whispered into her ear and picked her up. He quickly walked into the room and closed the door behind him with a wave of his palm. He took off his clothes of his own accord, only to see that at this moment, his black hair was like a waterfall, his skin was snow white, his slender body had a perfect ratio, and his physique was distinct. Her sweet as rain white lotus, light as an ore chapterid in a valley, while her chapter-arming appearance was like a deadly poppy. The temptation of 36D made it hard for him to control his emotions. Situyele. I don't want it, I don't want it. Don't take off my clothes. Yaoer, I haven't been in love with you for a few days. I miss you to death. Scram, don't. You're so beautiful, I really want to kiss you everywhere, don't. Ah. Pain, Yaoer, I love you. Pieces of clothing were scattered on the ground, including chapterists, underpants, black clothing, and all sorts of other things. The wind blew the butterfly or chapterids on the windowsill, and a faint fragrance mixed with the ambiguous atmosphere circulated in the room. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.